Prefer when I'm by myself. I don't wanna hang around y'all. Pray for good health. Prefer when I'm by myself. I don't wanna hang around y'all. Pray for good health.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Combat Sports Weekly. This is your host, Coach Franco Rulloda, and with me is the Titos of Fighting, JC Reyes of Destroy MNL. Karl De Mesa will join us in a bit.
Mhm.
What's up, JC? What's up?
What's up?
Very excited for
Monday
today's
na
episode.
naman. Yeah.
Yeah, we are very excited for today's episode. So many things happening in the world of combat sports, but more importantly, we have several updates. We have a special guest, and he's going to give us a glimpse and show us the potential of MMA, not just in the Philippines but in Southeast Asia. Thank you, everyone. We are live on Facebook and on YouTube, so that's Coach Franco's Corner on Facebook, on YouTube, and MMA Davao on YouTube as well. If it's not so much to ask, please share this live. Keep sending us your likes and make sure that you are tuned in. You listen to everything, and we will do our best to provide you guys with value that hopefully you can do or you can add to your training, to how you see the sport of MMA and what you can do. I mean, these are very actionable items para mag-improve yung mga career ninyo. Now, without further ado, our guest is the president of BRAVE CF. From the cage to the front office, the boss himself, Mr. Mohammed the Hawk Shahid. Hello, sir. All the way. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you guys? I'm excited to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your time.
Yes.
I mean, looking at the items that you want to discuss, I mean, this is a lot. But before anything else, this is something that I'd like to ask you personally. You're one of the rare guys that had cage experience. You know how it is to be a fighter. You've done it at the elite level. How is the transition from being the guy who's performing, who's preparing, who's cutting weight, and then all of a sudden you are going to bring that experience to promoting fighters, dealing with the business side, and then now, I mean, this is a very ambitious endeavor that you're undertaking. So how are you translating, or how are you transitioning into that position?
It's physically it's a lot of difference. I'm 100 kgs different from my fighting career for sure. Mentally, that's the thing that it's no different being at chief executive level, whether it's business, whether it's sports, whether it's an MMA promotion, or being a fighter. You have to take the same values that I've learned being an MMA fighter. I'm a high school dropout, to be honest. Today, I'm the private secretary to His Highness Sheikh Khalid bin Hamad Al Khalifa, the Prince of Bahrain. I'm the advisor to the president of the Olympic Committee of Bahrain. I am the chairman of the holding company called HK Holding, CEO of KHK Sports, and president of MMA promotion called Brave Combat Federation. So that is over 80 different companies and a very high net worth let's say financial value for these companies. But it's not the education that helped me sustain, it's the knowledge from the fighting career that taught me how to manage a company. It's no different. I think the first and foremost lesson is how can you manage yourself. If you want to manage 20 people under you or 100 people under you, if you're not learned to manage yourself, if you cannot discipline yourself, how are you going to discipline the rest of the company? I mean, that's what I learned from fighting career, and that's the values that I took, and it served me well. And I've seen the results, so I feel like that is something that in future life as well, I want to dedicate and educate the rest of the youth and the future fighters, as well as the future entrepreneurs, that the mentality of learning self-awareness and understanding yourself and disciplining yourself is crucial, and martial arts can help you do that.
And then quick follow-up on that, Mohammed, is being on the business side of things and promoting fighters and promoting events. Of course, now the priorities have changed. how do you now communicate the needs of the company or how the company operates to your fighters, to your coaches, and you how do you communicate what is needed or what are the things that you have to accomplish in order to grow their organization? Because of course, from a fighter's perspective, they're always about personal growth, what they need at the moment, what do they want as a fighter in order to grow their market, in order to grow their brand. How are you communicating that in terms of being on the other side or being on being on the fence of the organization?
I mean, just think about it this way. If you have, if you're the person that has to put bread on the table to your family, and all you can afford is one bread, and your family is 10-person family, what are you going to do? You're going to share that one bread into 10. Does not mean the hunger of these of your family members are going to go away, correct? So
Mm-hmm.
the goal you should be trying to look at is not how to keep them satisfied, is rather get out and get us 10 breads. That's the goal we should be looking at realistically. And that's what Brave Combat Federation is doing. Today, if you are looking at the athlete's problem, this is where we are in this bubble of MMA. I come from the sports world where we're looking at mixed martial art and we look at it and we're like, it's not a sports business. It is in the event business. Brave Combat Federation is not here to compete with UFCs or Bellators. We are not here to compete with them because I believe that they're not in the sports business. They're in the event business. If you want to have the biggest fight between Conor and Khabib, or you want to have Shakira and Beyonce fight with each other, it's no different. It's sorry, but I'm just saying that it's in the event business.
But
We
it's
want to
true. It's true.
right?
Yes.
So that's why, don't get me wrong, today we are looking at boxing and we're laughing at boxing. Oh, YouTubers are taking over. Believe me, once they're done with that, they're coming back to us, and they're
Yep.
going to be here and they're going to be at your doorstep and there's nothing you can do. So you're going to sit down and tell your children the next 20 years, don't work hard, don't train hard, make sure you have high YouTube followers and Instagram followers and social media followers and try to create a monkey artwork for your Netflix, NFTs. So that's going to be your future instead of training 20 hours a day for the next 20 years to be a fighter. But that's the situation, and we can't blame anybody about it. We can't blame the influencers. We can't blame the YouTube guys. We had to blame the industry because we are in an industry that's in an event business. Brave Combat Federation's vision statement is very straightforward: to change the mixed martial art industry from an event business to a sports business. Part number two of that vision statement is to give opportunity to athletes from around the world, regardless of creed, sex, nationality, or marketability. Very important factor. It doesn't matter. We need to have the day we want to say mixed martial art is a sport, is a day we can have a Lionel Messi in mixed martial art. But I've never heard his interview because he doesn't speak English, but it doesn't matter. As long as his talent shows, he could still be the best in the world. In MMA today, if you don't speak English or you're not marketable, you might not reach there at a very fast pace. And that's the challenge. And that's not fighters' fault. It's the industry's fault. So what do we have to do? Bring 10 breads on the table. So we have to change the format of mixed martial art and make sure the mixed martial art industry is rich. You guys are spending your time as a media platform to develop mixed martial art. I heard your introduction. It was very interesting to hear that because that's the contribution you guys are giving from passion, from heart. But is there industry's money enough to feed the MMA media platforms? So you're looking at industries, not promotion and fighters alone. Media platforms are industry, managers are industry, gyms are industry, and everybody's suffering because our industry does not have money. That's where we cannot share it enough. So what Brave is trying to do is change the policy, change the format, and bring in a new format called sports business that we have seen successfully over the past 100 years. For centuries, we've seen football, NBA, NFL, cricket, the biggest federations, and their model. You don't have to have rocket science or great ideas. Take what's already there and put it into the MMA business model. And that's what we're doing. And if you're looking at comparing the business model, 7,000 MMA promotions, 6,999 are failed. Does that make any sense? You have to understand from that this business model does not work.
Yes.
Let's be honest about it. It's very straightforward. It's in front of us. We just don't speak about it because, like I said, we're in this bubble that all we like to do is watch these events, praise the fighters, praise the promotions, and we leave it to them. But it's time for us to stand up and create a new format. And that's what Brave is doing. We're here to unite the world, go around the world, globalize, not financial revenue is not our priority as a business. Our priority is very straightforward: is to change the MMA industry from an event business to a sports business, and that's what we're here for. So we're not really competing with any other promotion that's out there. We are complete. It's a tug of war. We're not pulling the same rope. We're going and pulling a completely different rope that's out there. So these guys can go around fighting with their promotions, but we are here to bring the sports model and for our grandchildren to grow up and see that we have a FIFA structure here in mixed martial art.
That is really good to hear. Now,
Yeah.
just a little backstory, Mohammed. Um, we've known Brave like way before. Like
Yeah,
this is
when
not
it
kissing
was
your ass,
starting out.
okay? This is not kissing your ass or kissing Brave's ass, okay? We've known your organization before.
Great to know.
JC here is with Carl. Carl will probably join us in a bit. They were initially the first pair of MMA media that covered Brave. And when
Yes,
Brave
yes.
was here in the Philippines for the very first event, they were there during the time, and they were talking about Brave when nobody knew about Brave.
Yeah.
Right.
Me, on the other hand, I know of Brave because my wife grew up in Bahrain,
Wow.
and yeah,
No world.
and my parents are still there. So so the entire culture of and the history of Bahrain is I have a deep understanding of it, or at least a close understanding of it. And then I looked at Bahrain, and then I saw that MMA is there, jiu-jitsu is there. I almost taught a seminar there prior to COVID, but with travel restrictions didn't push through. But for me personally, it's very exciting to have an opportunity to travel there and see the sights, the culture, especially with all the stories that my wife has told me. Now, when it came to Bahrain as a country, not many people know that it's a hub for sports. It's not just I mean, you guys have horse racing, for crying out loud. You guys have football. You have I mean there's a plethora of
Everything.
sports. So almost everything. So when it came to Bahrain, the best part for me was that the government was involved, and I really hope, and it was one of my and during conversations that I have with my friends and here with JC and Carl, is that hopefully something like that happens here in the country, and or at least someone starts a movement wherein people get involved. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, okay, Mohammed, I think you have that same vision, and you have that same path. So that's why whenever I looked at the structure of what Brave is doing right now, I mean, this is very ambitious, but it's doable. But you have to hurdle so many challenges. I'm just putting it out there. Okay. So that's why we're very keen to have this conversation with you, because we really want to know how this will benefit Brave, how this will benefit the fighters, each country who's going to participate into this program. Because like what you said, you're not even JC. JC was one of the first guys who said Brave is creating something that's uniquely theirs. They're not
Yeah.
competing with other promotions. They're being the guys, or Brave is being the guy that develops talent that becomes superstars in other promotions.
Sure.
And that and that unique type of strategy builds Brave's brand. I mean,
It's pretty much raising the bar in MMA.
it's raising the bar, it's creating talent, distributing that talent. So for example, we've nobody when nobody knew about Kamzat Shamav, JC said, "This is my boy. This is my boy right here." So we were like, okay, let's see.
I've
Then
seen him
all
in
of a sudden,
Braves.
yeah, then he was a Brave alumnus, and then he's making waves now in the UFC. So every time people see Kamzat Shamav, they don't just see him, they see Brave.
Yep.
And that's something that's working. That's a working strategy right now. So I mean, can you like I'm probably just scratching the surface. So with regards to that type of strategy for Brave, how do you? I mean, for sure, this is just the first wave. Any second or third tier to that, Mohammed?
See, it all comes down to one solution, and that's we will always repeat this, and we should do a maybe in future a longer session just to talk about the business model, the
If you
format.
want, you have the show, bro. You have the show. You can talk however long you want.
Sure.
because the format is unbelievable, because this is what we need to talk about is the format. Forget about every conversation we are having today in the MMA world. None of that matters. You hear some guys talking about fighters pay, forget about it. Some guys talking about promotions and the way they're treating fighters or not treating fighters, forget about it. There are promotions that say we are respectable promotions and we are giving martial art values, forget about it. Leave everything aside. The real solution comes down to the format, because once you have an actual format, that is going to make it into a sports, every other problem that we have been discussing till today solves the issue. We haven't even reached the format yet. As Brave, we haven't even executed the format yet because, like you perfectly placed, there's a lot of factors involved to be fixed, which is why you look at us and somebody says, why did you take the International Mixed Martial Art Federation away from the UFC Fight Week and bring it to Bahrain? I mean, it's just more financial expenses, costs, headache on top of your shoulder while you're just creating Brave. I mean, you just started Brave in September 23rd and one event, December 2nd event, and now you're bringing the World Championship outside of UFC Fight Week? How dare you? And then we just look and we say, listen, it is a plan we have from the sports structure. MMA world will never understand it today, and I'll explain to you why. But for now, we need a regulatory authority. If you don't have FIFA in MMA, whatever format you're creating will not be regulated, which means zero security. There's going to be a lot of frauds, there's going to be a lot of corruption, and you're going to create another boxing world with a lot of corruption, money stealing, and the wrong people involved in the sport. You don't even know if it's a sport or if it's something else. So that's where you don't want MMA to reach, because you need a regulatory authority like FIFA, not the WBO, WBC, IBO, IBF, ABCB, so many stuff that's going on. It's not regulation if you think about it. We need a FIFA. That's why we took the biggest international federation for MMA with us, partnered with them, invested in them, and created for 3 years consecutively the largest world championship you could see in any combat sports, boxing, wrestling, and you compare that to 17, 18, and 19 MMAF World Championship, you will see a festival. And today, people are wanting to host it. Right now, as we do this live, we're having Abu Dhabi World Championships going on right now because they've hosted it. Today, it has become an event everybody wants to host it after they saw what happened the last 3 years. But we didn't stop there. We said, great. First phase is done. Let's go to second phase, change the format of the MMA amateur event and create an MMA Super Cup, which we launched now, which is easy for the eye. When we talk about football, we talk about Holland, we know it's orange. Brazil, yellow. You look at Italy, blue. Football fans can know the colors, easy to understand their teams. So we want to make it easy for the eyes for the people who are watching the amateur events rather than just a blue and a red fighting against each other. So we gave them T-shirts with team kits. We made it easy to understand from the scoring system. Unlike the 10-9 system, we made it team versus team, 9-9. Let's see who gets the highest point. Whoever wins 5 fights wins the game. Giving the national federations money, that's unheard of in combat sports. International federation never funds a national federation. Football, cricket, that's where the development happens. International federation funds the national federation. And combat sports, we don't see that. But this event is going to do that as well. So that's on the development of the regulatory authority. While we do that, on the other hand, parallel to that, we wanted to stick to our word, which I mentioned in the vision statement, to globalize and give opportunity to athletes from around the world, which is what we did, going around 25 countries in 5 continents in just 5 years. Considering out of that 5 years, 2 years was a pandemic years, but we still went to 25 countries in 5 continents. No other promotion other than UFC and us have done that. Of course, UFC didn't do that in their first 5 years, but they were tuned in 30 years, let's say. But this is why we were able to create Francis Ngannou to Johnny Walker from Brazil, Kamzat Chimaev from Sweden, Jarrah Selawi from Middle East. You look at every continent and countries, you look at the biggest stars today, considered to be the biggest draw for the future of MMA is from Brave Combat Federation. And it's not because we have a special technique under our sleeves or we have the greatest media team or we are, Rupert Murdoch or something. The difference simply was that we did the hard work. We did what was right. We did what a format required to. The only reason, let me ask you a question. I don't know if you guys are football fans, but I'll ask you a question. We all know the biggest country, the most talented country, or the country that is most famous for football is Brazil. Everybody knows that in football, in the soccer football world. But then you look at it, why are Brazilian talents not famous until they reach the European League? It's the best talents that's coming out. We saw the greatest talent ever, but as long as they're in the Brazilian League, we don't know them. The moment they are in, you see the Ronaldinhos, the Ronaldos, the Vinicius Juniors of today. We see them becoming famous when they go into international world. And if you don't have that platform that somebody's going to take you to the international world, and they're playing the chicken and egg situation where they're saying that, oh, we won't take you unless you show me you have global following or international followers. And you're like, wait, how would I have it if I didn't come and join your event? If you don't take me outside, how am I going to have it? So it's a chicken and egg situation that promotions are playing around. They leave it to the fighters to make sure that they have to deliver to the promotion. But I think it's a sports requirement that the sports have to deliver to the talent. And that's what we did to give them a glimpse what we have done. Gamza Chimaev's fame came when he fought in India. The amount of followers he had after he fought in India was unbelievable. That population really backed him. And that's sufficient. Even when we came to Philippines for one fighter, for Stefan Lohman, who traveled around the world with us, became the longest reigning champion in the history of Philippines world championship holder. But at the same time, he went to different countries, competed with the defended his title or with his opponents in their countries, So that's everything that he's done. We have to pay dues for him and make sure that we have to make an event in Philippines for that individual. No promotion will do that and enter a new market with their longest reigning champion, because their ticket sales, their sponsorship gets affected in a new market. We don't care about that. We do what is the right thing. And believe me, that's the reason why all the stars have been able to build. Today, we have 20 plus guys who have not been in Brave in the first 4 years and now bigger stars internationally. And that's just the format. And believe me, as the format gets mature, as the league format that we announced, Brave National League, we announced last year, gets implemented in 2022, what we will see is a structure like FIFA, where the International Federation has been empowered. We travel around the world and work with the national federations. We collaborate and unite it with the local promotions. That's why you'll see us doing a lot of co-promotions in the past 2-3 years. We go to the country and we take the people who have invested in the sport themselves and join the group. We collaborate with the media side around the world, and eventually we create the icing on the cake. The most successful sports business model is a franchise league model. Hands down, nobody can argue with that. And so what we're going to do is when we have that whole structure A to Z, we're going to take the most fastest growing sport in the world, fastest valuation growth sport in the world, the fastest globalization sport in the world, and make it join hands with the most successful sports business model. The result we're going to be getting from that is the largest or more lucrative sports investment opportunity the world has ever seen. And when you put on the table the most successful or lucrative sports business opportunity in the world, you will see the private sector that has tasted blood with sports, investing in sports, they would reinvest in the most. And it's not coming from a MMA fighter alone. Just think about it. We have invested in, like you said, horse racing. We have invested in football. We have invested in esports. We have invested in, if you look at KHK Sports, I'm the CEO of, you will see the amount of sports we have invested in. So from an investor of sports, I'll say it, that none of that is even 1% of what it will be in investing in a franchise model if MMA goes into that model. But the only problem is people want to go into that model without having a FIFA regulation, because when you bring the private sector funding into this business, you have to be careful that it is safe. It is not unregulated. People are going to steal your money and run away, and you don't have anybody to go and complain it to. So you don't want it to be in that situation, which is why you have to have a regulatory authority at the national level and international level. And when the private sector fund comes into a sport, the National Federation is going to be the regulatory authority for that league, which makes them more powerful than any other sports that's around them. And that means getting the government support. So we don't have to hope for government support. If you have the format, government support will come. Creating national heroes will come because you have the national league in your country. Media platforms will not have to rely on MMA fighting or other American media platforms or UFC to start giving news that matters. You have your own story in your own country and your own stars, and you have a link internationally because you will have leagues in other countries collaborating with each other. I know this is too much to absorb in 5 to 10 minutes that I'm throwing, but I want to throw as much as I can so we can discuss it further. But
yeah, for sure. This is all good. JC, if you have a question.
Oh yeah. So given all this success in like over half a decade now, at least, I mean, you started in 2016. It's very interesting that even the founder of Brave Combat Federation, the Sheikh himself, Khalid bin Hamad Al Khalifa, tried MMA first before even attempting to build a huge organization like this, and then got you to lead the whole company. Is this related to how you handle the whole business? I mean, you're very protective of the sport. You want to make sure that everything is done right, and that's all coming from a fighter's perspective. it's just amazing because I mean, if you look at other organizations, I mean, there probably are other big organizations that have someone who leads them who has fight experience, but this one, I'd like to believe that everyone in this company is involved, is actually involved in MMA or has fought in some way in MMA. So is this a big factor in the fast growth of Brave MMA Federation? MMA Brave Combat Federation rather.
100%. 100%. I'll give you an example. Like I said, I've tried to rant as fast as I could to get as much information without getting you guys to sleep. So I want to get all that because it's hard to absorb
No,
for
this is
MMA.
good. This is so good.
Because I'll tell you, MMA fans at this point, like I said, we're in a bubble. It's so hard to absorb all the sports information, sports business information. And they're like, what the hell is going on? There's too much information to absorb. But I'll give you an example of that, which is why, Franco, you said that your family is here. So really important to understand where we come from. Why is this guy, it's called Brave Combat Federation and KHK, might be someone we have to believe in. Why should that be? Then we have to go back to the history. His Highness Sheikh Khalid bin Hamad Al Khalifa, he's the son of the King of Bahrain, the Prince of Bahrain. You look at the history of what they have done in the past decade or so for sports in the region. Not that we have developed sports, let's keep that aside. We have been the guys who are innovating innovation in sports leaders, so we're leadership in innovating sports. So just an example, who are the first ones to bring F1 into the region of Gulf or Middle East? Bahrain, who were the first ones to bring the biggest Ironman competition to the region called Ironman.
Oh yeah, the first Iron. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true.
We're the first ones, and it is called the Red Carpet Ironman. If you look at the first team, forget about the events that we are hosting here. Even the World Championship, we are the first ones to host in the region. But let's keep that aside. Let's talk about teams competing in international events. Even if you look at the first team to go to Tour de France was Bahrain Merida, now called Bahrain Victorious, and forget about even going to events, Olympics or Tour de France, about investing in sports. If you look at it, in football alone, we have invested in Cordoba, which is a Spanish club. 100% ownership is ours. We have Paris FC in France. We have Khaldia in Bahrain. It's only on the sports side. We have rowing, horse racing team, but also on the regulation side, the executive vice president of FIFA is Sheikh Salman bin Ibrahim. He's also the head of Asian Football Confederation. His Highness Sheikh Khalid is the head of the General Sports Authority, and many more in Bahrain that is at the regulation level. So we are taking if you look at the beginning and innovation in sports, we are being the first ones. I'm not saying we will make it the best one in the world, but I'm saying we'll be the first ones. And that's why if we talk about making another first step towards changing the model of MMA, these guys have the track record. That's why Brave Combat Federation. These Brave Combat Federation guys have the track record of being the first one and being consistent for the next 10 years. On the second hand, for the question you asked about practicing the sport itself, it is the most important thing to understand that in the end of the day, the people who are creating this format, we need to know that in the future, while this format is being taken care of around the world, it is not an easy job. Sport is too big for one man, one country, or one brand to handle, which is why we're going around the world and uniting as army to fight for this cause. But who's going to lead it? We need to be in safe hands. Today, you are in a safe hands. Mixed martial art is in safe hands because it is under His Highness Sheikh Khalid. Because you look at his background, he himself is a person who has changed the sport by practicing it, leading from the front. So forget about just boxing and mixed martial art. When we did Strongest Man and created the first GCC Strongest Man event in the country, brought the world's strongest man to the country, he participated in being strongest man. When we were creating a new channel from Saudi to Bahrain, he was the first one to swim from Saudi Arabia to Bahrain. And when we are looking at the triathlon event, His Highness Sheikh Nasser and Sheikh Khalid participated in triathlon event. So why did they have to do it? So they can look back and tell the youth that if I'm going to develop the sport in this country, and if I am doing it, what's your excuse? What's your excuse to not do sports? And 10 years from today, the sport has changed A to Z. But it is about leading from the front. And they want to do it to say that if I'm going to sit back in my chair and give orders, how is the sport going to grow? I need to be there in front. And that's why if you come to Bahrain in March and you will see the MMA Super Cup, you will see one man behind every Bahraini athlete with a bucket and ice, behind them with towel, bucket, and ice, and that'll be His Highness. And that's the son of the king of our country. That's our leader that we are following. And because of that leadership, because of that proactive attitude of being in the front and being there with us, giving call at 1 a.m. to all the fighters live on Instagram and talking to them and telling them to educate, because sorry, I didn't have time the whole day, but I'm going to take 1 a.m. in the morning before sleeping to talk to the fighters so they can educate to the people who are not fighters, to tell them what it means to be an athlete, what it means to not give up. Why does he have to do it when he's having all these positions at a military level, at a sports level? But that's the leadership we need. But that's the leadership we need to motivate other leaders to know that this is what we are. So for me, as an MMA fan, like yourselves, practitioner, fan, I can look back and say that if somebody was going to create this new structure around the world, I'm glad it's His Highness Sheikh Khalid. I'm glad it's KHK Sports, because I'm glad that I'm part of it. It's weird that I'm saying it myself, but I'm glad because we are in safe hands. We are in safe hands. We're in the hands of someone who really care about it, not who cares about my pay-per-view sales. My balance sheet is green or red in the end of the... It doesn't matter. Once you care about your balance sheet, you care about the money, your pay-per-view sales, you're going to be sharing with media nothing real or lies. And that's the difference with what we do. Everything that we say, when we say we're globalized, when we say we're the largest in Asia, talk about which other promotion has gone into Southeast Asia, South Asia, Central Asia, and West Asia. We are doing what we say. Unlike saying that we have 90%, but you're not there in any of the other part of Asia, or you don't consider rest of the world as Asia. And that has affected our sports today. When we do the Asian world ranking for amateur, do you know that Central Asia is number 1 and West Asia is number 2? Where is the Southeast Asia and South Asia? Because they relied on the big promotions to support them and be a part of it, and that's the development of MMA. But you look at the development, it's going nowhere because they are so worried about their own company's development, where the shareholder will look at them and smile rather than the fights and the fans and the future. That's been the challenge we are facing. That is exactly why we had to create Brave Combat Federation. We didn't create it because we want another investment in MMA. We could have invested in many other sports that's already well regulated, but we want to come into MMA simply because we had a team called KHK MMA. We had guys like Khabib, Frankie Edgar, James Gallagher, Shori Torres, France Malambo, all these guys, Islam Makhachev, all in one team before Brave, and we realized that MMA industry is a disaster because we see these guys competing in different promotions and we're like, what the hell is going on in the sport, And we see guys like Khabib, unbelievable talent, had to wait 9-10 years and still had to fight the biggest draw to become famous, That's impossible. That's not supposed to happen. You don't have to wait 9-10 years. And thank God he learned English so that he could at least talk back in the press conference. Otherwise, they would be lost. And that's the situation we see in Islam, Makhachev as well. So we can't rely on individuals and companies to dictate the sport. We need to come together. We have the format. We've invested in the International Federation, and we have the right leadership to take the sport internationally around the world. At a government level, no problem. At a private sector level, no problem. And we have the format. So we need to come together and change that. And we believe in the next 5 years that change is going to happen. So when that change happens, believe me, I give this example that I don't know if you guys, I always use the example about Nokia phone. I don't know if you guys know about Nokia phone. Once upon a time, we had Nokia
yeah,
phones.
Yeah. It was very popular here. It was I think it was globally popular. Yeah, it was globally popular.
Always we were like, what's the next N series, And we're looking, you have the water drop model, and we're all like showing off with our N series. And one fine morning, we woke up in the morning and suddenly we forgot about Nokia. We're all on this stuff, And we're like, what the hell happened? What happened? And where did this Apple come from? And where did this fridge company called Samsung start making mobiles? What's going on here, What happened was not that iPhone or Apple competed with Nokia. They just created a new system called smartphones. And the people who couldn't follow up with that innovation thought that, oh, nobody can compete with me because my brand is so big. They failed. They were forgotten one fine morning when we woke up. So today, the MMA industry is Nokia and Brave is Apple. That's how simple I can put it into.
Wow, that's really good. That was really good. Okay, now before we continue, Mohammed, I would like to introduce you to the other titos of Tito in Filipino is uncle. Okay, so we're like the uncles of fighting here in the Philippines because we are like the only show that covers combat sports mostly. So this is Karl De Mesa. Karl, this is Brave CF.
I think you might have met when Brave.
Yeah,
was
you
here
probably
a few
met him
years
because
ago.
this guy and this guy covered Brave's events here in the Philippines when
Amazing.
nobody they were talking Brave when nobody knew about Brave.
I love you
Yes,
guys.
sir. Hello. It's
Love
nice
the
to see you
loyalty.
again. We have
Pleasure to
pictures
see you, Carl.
together. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then
I see you guys
so
are doing well.
Thank you.
Sorry, Carl.
Thank you. Thanks for all your
I
support and everything you guys
oh
have done.
yeah, forever. That for sure. And before Carl gives asks his question, I just want to reiterate what Muhammad said. The very important highlight of everything is that it comes from an individual whose leadership qualities follow the same principle that he practices. I mean, that's the huge difference. A lot of people just promote shows, they're businessmen, they're not practitioners. So we have someone that actually practices. So this guy knows the entire supply chain of how it is to run a business, but at the same time he knows what fighters go through and the store and the things that they have to go through in order to succeed. So on I mean the way this whole thing is panning out, and you guys are rolling programs in different countries, so you have a global approach, but in as much as you can tell us, Mohammed, how do you plan to roll this out on a local level? I mean, of course there will be partnerships, there will be, but you also have to hurdle the main. This is one of the challenges that I'm seeing with the structure that you guys are doing right now. For every country, you are posed with different challenges because different individuals, different governments, different cultures. So how do you guys plan to do that? Are you going to have local partners, or do you have just it's brave and we will put our people there, or are you going to coordinate with people on the ground and then coordinate everything that needs to be done?
Yeah, 100%. If you look at Brave, we said that Brave is not a promotion, it's a national project. And the reason why we say it's a national project is you cannot create a national project in Philippines. Whoever you are, I cannot come and do a national project if I don't have the government, the private sector, the national federation, and the local promoters on board. You need to bring everybody on board. And those people who come will only execute, will not make it successful until you have everybody else on board, which is the media platform, the gyms on board, and the athletes on board. So these are the guys who are going to make it successful. And the first set of people are the ones who are going to be implementing the vision itself. So Brave has a bigger vision, which is the global structure or the global ecosystem, as we call it, for the mixed martial art, and that's the FIFA structure for football to be implemented in MMA. But when we go at a national level, you have to look at it, each country by itself. You need the national federation, which is why we go and work with the national federation, which is under the International Mixed Martial Art Federation. We create the format called the league format, and then we get the government and private sectors on board because the format itself requires private sectors to come on board and invest into it. But government will come on board because it's Philippines linking whatever the format that we're creating in the country. That is a sports structure that's connecting with the rest of the world under one umbrella. So there's going to be a lot of bilateral values that sports can give. Today, MMA is not giving any national values, let alone give bilateral values. How many athletes have actually given back money other than tax to the country? It's not happening. That's why FIFA World Cup is so big, because like MMA Super Cup is the first time athletes are going to compete to give value, financial value to the country. First ever in mixed martial art history. And that's going to give government interest to mixed martial art. And those are the kind of formats that you need. So there's going to be government involvement, private sectors coming on board because they want to be part of this investment format. Why? Because once they're part of this investment, they're going to be part of this elite club of investors who are owning franchises in Philippines. But those group of people that's invested in Philippines will be linking with the people who are invested in the franchises in Middle East, Europe, Africa, so and so, in different leagues around the world, and they're going to be inside one elite global network, which is also important to create as a sports power or sports diplomacy, let's say. And these are the values that we need to give. So, the question, to answer your question, we have to work. We need to bring everybody together in a country. It cannot happen by Brave itself. That is why when we travel to each country, we call it a national project, because we put our seeds there and start working from a grassroots level. And the National Federation, who's connected to the International Federation, works on the grassroots development program. We bring in our event. We take athletes and make them compete internationally for now, until the league format is established and introduced this year in 2022 and executed and launched in 2023 officially around the world. So that's the step-by-step format. And you need everybody to be involved in that format, because if you as a media platform don't share this idea and don't share this vision to the MMA public, they're never going to understand what's really going. You are our voice. We can only execute, work hard, and implement and bring people together. But as long as the public don't see it, hear it, or understand it, it's going to be a challenge. So yeah, every country we've gone to, if you look at Philippines as well, we came in directly. Brave was the first promotion to come in and work directly endorsed by the president of Philippines. If you
Mhm.
look at Indonesia, we're the first ones to be endorsed by the president of Indonesia. Morocco was patronized by. It was under the patronage of the king of Morocco. Brazil with the mayor. So you look at the international government relationship with Brave. We know the value of that, and that's what we want to introduce. So the national federation is going to come on board. The league model will change everything. So that's the icing on the cake, and that's going to be the day. It's like launching Apple. Like I said, that's going to be the launch, which is going to change everything in the mixed martial arts sport, and we're going to realize that we don't need to rely on anybody signing our athletes anymore to create stars. We don't need to rely on anyone else to make sure our industry is rich and our athletes are making the right amount of money. We have everything within ourselves. The format will do that. The most important thing is we need to have a team that can execute that format, and we need a regulatory authority that is strong enough to carry that format. And today we see that we have IMMAF, a strong regulatory authority. The only international federation that is, congratulations to them, got WADA signatory in this month actually. So that's one step closer to being in the Olympics as well. So they, with that partnership together, what we do and what they do for the past 10 years, it is a very possible, let's say, goal and dream.
Yeah, and this coming from you is very very important, because you mentioned the entire program in its entirety, plus you provided that this is a long-term program, and you have a long-term vision for this, and the EMAF is involved. You'd be glad to hear that the EMAF is known here in the Philippines, the International MMA Federation, and in partnership of the International MMA Federation. Like for example, me, I am an EMAF certified coach. I was with
Amazing.
Andrew Moshonov, so we brought him over. So he taught
Amazing.
all of us, and the EMAF had initial presence here because of Alvin Aguilar. Alvin Aguilar
Yes,
is he's the father of MMA here in the Philippines. So
correct.
he saw the vision of EMAF and he said this has to happen here in the Philippines. So he brought it here. We were the initial group. I was part of the initial group who started giving people like this is the EMAF, because nobody knew what the EMAF was.
True.
So it's me, then me, JC and Carl here helped me with this show, put more awareness with regards to who the EMAF is, what they're planning to do, and with Alvin, Richard Lasprilla, Coach Lester Del Rosario, myself, we integrated and created PMAF. So that's the Philippine MMA Federation. And all of the tournaments that's happening with the PMAF is in accordance with the EMAF rules.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I have to memorize all your rules now. So from the kids, and this is what we're telling people. You have MMA programs for kids, teens, young adults, adults. And this is something that I explain to everyone. It's a very, very safe program. It's not every tier of the program is to prepare the child to become a kid that will know more of the rules, and then once they become adults, they're full MMA fighters. I mean, the skill sets are there. So I
True.
think that's part of the brand awareness. That's part of the awareness drive that we're trying to convey. That's why the PMAF is holding a lot of MMA tournaments wherein there are kids, there are young adults, so that
True.
parents, so that people can see that this is a very good sport. This is a safe sport, and the rule sets are there to protect the fighters and
Sure.
build a really good future for them. So, I mean, Carl, please ask your questions to Mohammed.
Oh, thank you. It's just great to see you again, sir. And I really
Yes.
like how you've kept the beard.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like you
Yeah.
age. Oh, last time we saw each other, it was so rich.
I actually didn't get time to shave. That's been the problem. That's how busy we are right now. That I didn't even get to go to saloon right now.
Awesome. I just wanted to ask, because last year was the first time you guys got nominated in the World MMA Awards as Promotion of the Year. It must be a great confirmation of all your hard work. How does it feel, and where do you go from here? Is there anything you'd like to improve in terms of, because you guys put on great shows, but is there anything personally you think where you could improve?
we haven't yet achieved the end goal yet. Our end goal is to create the ultimate format. So if you look at 6 years, like we were discussing, we have been working very hard on creating strengthening the international federation, globalizing the sports, showing the value, and creating a strong network around the world with federations, with co-promotions, and all of all of that till today and this year 2022 is all leading to the ultimate format, which is a Brave National League, which is going to be launched in 2023. And that's going to be a structure that is going to be not just the leagues around the world, but regulated by the national federations, which these national federations are regulated by the international federation, and creating at least thousands of private sector companies coming and investing in this model. So we are completely creating a new sports business model for MMA as a whole, which is completely different from what exists today. So the question is, what are we trying to achieve from that? You would, instead of having a $17 billion company in our sports industry today, I would rather not have that and have $23.5 billion companies. That's the industry I want to look at. And that means the industry is not monopolized. The industry is not under one brand. The industry is not under one country. The industry is spread around. There is not one businessman or one company, $1 million company that's invested in the sport. There is private sectors from around the world, government bodies from around the world, all of them involved in the sports. That's the only way we all are going to be successful. That's the only way every fighter can get opportunity. What are you going to do with you have 7,000 MMA promotions, just the MMA promotions? How many fighters do you think this big promotion can carry? If 7,000 MMA promotions are there, so how are they going to allow all these fighters get their opportunity? But you look at football, if you go to Spain, you will realize that the athletes that didn't even get the opportunity to be in the third, fourth, fifth division of the leagues, they create a special union to create a new program for these athletes to restructure their talent so they can be pushed out to smaller countries that have smaller leagues, so they still get the opportunity. So think about that format to where we are today in mixed martial art. I mean, I'm not saying we will reach there in 10 years. It might take 50, 60 years. But have we even planted the structure for that format to come in? And that's what Brave is doing. So where we are today, we haven't even started anything yet. We have only become a voice to tell the world that I will show you what the benefit of globalizing, how athletes are made stars faster. Number one, we've shown that. We've shown how brands can be globalized and connected with each other and benefit from each other countries' bilateral relationship through sports. We've shown what MMA can do in terms of giving value to a nation, serve the national agenda. A national agenda is foreign direct investment, trade relationship, and global exposure for the country. If a sports cannot deliver that, sports is not valuable enough, which is the exact reason why we are paying so much money and hosting F1s or World Cups or so and so, is because they can serve the national agenda values. And that is what MMA we want to give back. And on the other hand, we also need to show that we have a very strong regulatory authority. So all of this is what we built for the last 6 years. And these were all weapons that was being sharpened for 6 years so that we can come together and execute the actual format that exists. And even when you execute the format, it is just the beginning, because you could execute the format and need to make sure that they are successful. And believe me, like Franco mentioned, each country has their own structure, their own government, their own policies, and that is going to be there in sports. If you look at the UEFA today, the European Federation, or the AFC, which is the Asian Federation for football, they have completely different policies and rules and structure, for sure, but it's still connected under one roof, one umbrella. And they have a system where one day, if you have a club, we have a club now that's signed called Al Khaldiya Club. This club, we have a hope that one day, if we have the talent, we could play against the best club in the world. And why? Because we could be in the Club World Cup one day if we keep winning. And we will be playing against the Champions League winner, European Champions League winner, sorry. And that could be a possibility one day. We have that hope because the structure exists. In mixed martial art, we don't have the structure, and we need to change that. So we are just the tip of the iceberg right now. We have so much more to go in creating that format. The format is the key, changing the system, creating a global ecosystem, event business to sports business. That is what we all have to be loud enough to say to the MMA industry. And it's so nice to watch fights and see these promotions and see their growth and hear what they're saying. But when you sit down and talk to them and say, what have you done for the sports development other than 90% of your development to your company. That's where the question is, and that's what we are seeing today. You look at the International Mixed Martial Federation. You guys are from that world, so you know the IMF, and you know that the top 6 country today that's going to be an MMA Super Cup does not have Japan, does not have USA, does not have Brazil, and does not have, let's say, Southeast Asian countries. So what are the big promotions really doing for the sports development? Why haven't they invested in the grassroots development program? Why haven't they empowered the national federations? Why haven't they sponsored these teams to be there so they could be creating a grassroots development program? Why haven't they? So how do you expect them to take the sport on their shoulder if they haven't even taken their region or their country into their own shoulders? That's my question.
And that is
That's
a
a great-
question for us as well.
Yeah,
because we really believe, like the three of us, I could speak for my co-host here. We really believe that MMA has so much potential. It's an untapped. Like for example, we're speaking in terms of the Philippine landscape. It's a very untapped market. It's a growing community. However, we do not understand the barriers to entry or to the barriers to awareness as to why private entities or private brands find it difficult to partner with MMA promotions or the MMA community in general. So to see the structure that you just laid out a while ago, and for everyone who's going to watch and listen to this, you can just replay this later on. Mohammed laid down what the business structure. Okay, it's the entire business structure in order to partner or to make the business sector or the private sector realize the potential and the long-term potential of this sport and the people behind it. So, we'd like to ask you, Mohammed, like, what is the MMA Super Cup? Like, this is like the big question. What is the MMA Super Cup?
So MMA Super Cup is going to be, for us as fans, it is just going to be a fun damn event to watch. Believe me, that's going to be some fun thing to experience, because I'll tell you, I will, for this one, I will confess that we've leaned a little more on the entertainment side, because I want to see the entertainment side to it. So what we have done is we have made some, of course, the first event. So I don't mind if people blame me and say you made mistake with the format. I'm happy with it. But I'm still going to enjoy the entertainment side. So what we did was we created, so what we want to, I'll talk about the sports development side behind it, but we took the top 16. So you see all the countries, like they're competing as a federation. They go and compete in Oceanias, Asians, Worlds, Europeans, all this competition, spending their money, traveling, registration fee, and they compete. What for what? Okay, you can just say that we have competition, we're getting medals, but there should be a benefit to it and an end goal to the federation as well, rather than just saying that I am number one, number two. So Bahrain has been number one till this year. This year we lost our ranking to number 4. We've been number 1, 17, 18, and 19. But the question is, what's the point? Great, I can be proud that I'm number 1, but there should be something back to the country. The country should get something back for being number 1 for 3 years, So, because that's investment too. So that's when MMA Super Cup idea came in. Let's do the World Cup, where you have the qualifications. All this becomes a qualification. After the World Championship, the final qualifications, we will take the top 6 teams. Hopefully in the years to come, it might become 8, 10, and 12. But today it's top 6 teams, and we make the top 6 teams compete against each other. But we wanted to be 8 teams, but we kept 6 because 2 countries we want to add as wild card, which allows opportunity for countries that like Brazil, USA, or maybe Japan. These countries who their people are not supporting, but the federation really wants to be a part of it, but they don't have the investment or resources, and we want to bring them on board as wild card. But there's different criteria. So this time we added as wild card 1, the Arab nation. Instead of taking one country, we combined a team together called the Arab Champions. And the reason why is because MMA Super Cup is being held here. The investment that Arab region has put for IMMAF in the past 4 years, including this year, has been, nobody else were willing to put that kind of investment. So they deserve. UFC was saved in 2020 when pandemic hit. If Abu Dhabi didn't hold the Fight Island, they would be nowhere. So it would be only Brave roaming around and doing events. They wouldn't have done what they did if Abu Dhabi wasn't there. So we had to give that credit to the investment of what Arab nations have done for mixed martial arts. So we gave an Arab nation. The second wild card was given to the Balkan region. And Balkan region, we have done Serbia this time. We know how much Slovenia has supported us during the beginning stages to be enter into the European market. So if you look at the Balkan region, you look at Serbia, Bulgaria is a top 8 country in the world ranking. So they are out there in Europe. Balkan region, they're in the top 8, which is the highest ranked Balkan country. So we know that that region is also investing in sports, and they have a lot of government involvement and closest to creating our format that we're talking about in terms of uniting federation, government, private sector, gyms, all of it. So we thought we should give them an opportunity. So we have the Balkan region and the Arab region as wild card, and that is a part of the development program. Now the fun part is the format of the competition itself. Each country will be bringing in their 9 best fighters, 7 males, 2 females, and the 7 males can have only 2 substitutes, not 9 substitutes.
What weight division is this?
So males, it starts from bantamweight all the way to heavyweight.
Wow.
And then females, we did flyweight and bantam for now, because the first event, let's see how it goes. You know, we're going to hear a lot of complaints or suggestions, and we are accepting that, and we will take it, because we know that we haven't put the flyweight this time, but we want to give that flyweight and bantamweight to the women, and we want to make sure that women are on board as well, because this is going to be a test event, and we want to see how it goes. So that's going to be the weight class, but 7 weight class in male, and you can only have 2 substitutes. Now we'll get to the reason why only 2, why no substitutes for each one of them, being an MMA event. So we just kept 2 substitutes, and it's the coaches and the team's decision to find out which weight class they want the substitutes from. Now, so each country will have their own jerseys, their own team kit, and they will be coming in, and you're going to watch the match, not everybody fighting against each other. One cage, somebody's fighting, the other cage. No. It's like football. 2 teams come, national anthems go in, go back. If you've seen penalty shootouts, you will see that circles, red and green, if they miss or score. So it's like 9 circles, and we will see who won and who lost. So it'll be easier for you to see. Anybody who wins the first 5 fights, they win the competition. So if it is 4 and 4, and they're going for the last one on the 9th one, believe me, that guy's going to be a superhero, whichever team that wins, because they're going to take a nation to the next round. So here, each fighter is not fighting for his gold medal. He's fighting for the nation, because even if he wins, his teammate loses. Because of that teammate, the nation doesn't qualify to the next round. Even if you have the best fighter at heavyweight, everybody has to win. So that includes a national pride factor and the government's involvement to make sure that these are the best fighters. But how can you get the best fighters if you have to pay a registration fee to these competitions? So this event, we've canceled, no registration fee. We take care of their airlines, we take care of their accommodation. All the 112 members that's going to be here from athletes and 2 coaches, we take care of all their expenses. So which means all you have to do as a national federation is go hunt for your country's best 9 fighters who can bring that $100,000 back to your country and reinvest into the sports development. So this is what we are expecting. So we have Russia, Ukraine, Ireland, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Bahrain at this point, top 6 with Arab and Balkan region. Now, next year, every country knows what it means to compete in the MMAF events, to qualify and be in the top 6, because fight for that top 6 position, because you'll have MMA Super Cup where you will make your money back to the federations. There is an opportunity here that you have to look into. So 9 versus 9, and now we put pressure on the coaches, because now it's not always blaming the fighters. Coaches have a job to do here. You're going to select the 9 fighters. You're going to select the 2 substitutes, and you're going to select which weight class it's going to be. So if I was a coach, I would make sure that if my 9 fighters are going, let's say I fight against a team where I see that team 77 kg welterweight fighter is not as good, I would not let my best welterweight fight. I would put the substitute welterweight, and I'll keep my 2 welterweight to the semifinals. So because in semifinals, I might be competing Russia's welterweight, who's the world champion. So I'll rest my guy for that event. So there's a tactical side which the coaches have to focus on. At the same time, we also allow the fighters to make 1 weight class switch. So if I fight at 77 today, in the first, let's say, round of in the quarterfinals, the next event, I see that this lightweight is a tougher opponent, I will let my substitute come to 77 and fight the weaker guy, and I go to 71 and fight the other guy. But it's a coach's decision, so the coaches will have pressure because they have to make these big decisions, and let's hold the coaches responsible for once in a while, rather than always blaming the fight. So this time,
Well, that's
we are,
great because now MMA is a team sport.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a team sport. So one guy loses, okay, you can blame him. 9 guy loses, let's catch that coach and ask him a few questions. He needs to answer.
That's a coaching problem.
Yeah.
We're live on Facebook and on YouTube, and guess what? People are watching, people are listening, and this is one of the comments, Mohammed. Very interesting format. Everyone's tuning in and they're listening. See,
It is
I
very
told you,
exciting.
MMA people here in the Philippines are tuned in, bro. It's like they're very interested, and I think another thing that I want to touch on is it's a very good emphasis. You're not just fighting for glory, you're fighting for your country.
Yes.
And that is
And you're
what
fighting for the guy next to you.
yes.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what the PMAF is doing here locally in the Philippines.
Yeah.
It's a collection of all the gyms. This is the vision of Alvin, Professor Richard Lasprilla, and all of us, that we are going to train everyone, and then we're gonna select from those, create a pool that can compete overseas, and then the local tournaments here. You are not representing your gym. You are representing your municipality. You are representing your city. So
Yeah.
so for everyone who's watching and listening right now, this is where you see we are taking that EMA format and bringing it at a local level so that you guys have a better understanding and a better grasp of how it is going to be when we do it internationally. And this is exactly what Muhammad just said. You are going to get people, the top 9 from your country, different weight classes, two alternates, sorry, and then you're gonna fight for your country. So it's very parallel. It's so much the same, and I'm very happy with the leadership that we have here. Thank you so much for explaining it very very nicely, Mohammed. I mean, this is amazing. So with regards to creating the Super Cup, and you are I mean, for crying out loud, all Brave events, all the undercards are Brave. What do you call this? EMAF amateur fighters, right?
Sure.
So it's a good testament that you guys are doing what you're saying, because I think that's one of the topics that rarely gets coverage. A lot of promotions sign fighters, but they get shelved. That's why for example, when fighters talk to us, or they message us and they say, I'm so and so promotion is getting us,
Yeah,
and
I
they're
haven't
sending
been
us
fighting for like half a year or so.
yeah, and then they send us contracts, and then we try to read the contracts, and they go like,
Right.
okay, it's a 4-fight, 3-fight contract, but we always tell them, ask for the duration. Is it within a year, or
Yeah.
is it
Is
your
there a
in
time span?
perpetuity? Is there because there are a lot of
Forever.
there are a lot of fighters who get shelved.
True.
So
True.
so with regards to that, if you include this on top of, will the Super Cup be a different event on top of other Brave events?
It's going to be completely different, because it's going to be on the Brave International Combat Week. The MMA Super Cup is just national level, so it's going to be IMF partnered event. So it's going to be a curtain closer for the IMF calendar. So the IMF calendar will have all the way to the Worlds, which is happening now, the World Championship. After the World Championship, 2 months after or 3 months after, that'll be the end of the season with an MMA Super Cup, because that's when we take the world ranking and make them compete. Of course, this year we couldn't take the world ranking after the World Championship because the timing was very close, and they changed the World Championship to Jan instead of December or November. So we had to go with the previous ranking. But the good news is, after the MMA Super Cup, all the ranking gets wiped out, and they're going to start a clean slate, which means
Wow.
all the national federations around the world don't have to try to catch up to Russia and Bahrain's points. It's all going to start from zero. So you have an year to try to get as much points so you can be in the MMA Super Cup and bring your best team and get some good chunk of money to your national federation.
Mohammed, follow-up question. How sustainable is this project? I mean, we can discuss this later on if you want to, but for me,
No, go ahead.
the way we're doing it right now, and the way, I mean, I'm just excited we're all excited for what you're telling us. But at the end of the day, our our goal is to make sure that we're still in check with reality, and I just want to know, for the benefit of everyone here, is that how
mean the-
sustainable is this program?
Yeah.
How many events do you plan to do in a year? so that at least if you're an MMA fighter or you're an MMA team and you want to participate in EMAF events and Brave events, you can plan out your calendar here. Or at least it's for gyms to give them a glimpse of hope that they're not just training fighters for nothing. That
Mhm.
they
Yes.
that there's a goal, that there's
True.
something, there's an organization that we can participate in.
True. And okay, so let's start with IMF to start with. IMF is based on the national federations. Now I'll go back a little bit, but IMF. So how to compete in IMF? You know better because you're the national federation as well. It is a national federation. The national federation can make as many national tryouts within the country, cities, national level, village level. It depends on the country size and type. So that's one. But becoming in the national team is by the qualifications to the national tryouts and being in the IMF. But the MMA Super Cup will be every year once, because just like the calendar year, it's going to be every calendar year of IMF. You'll have the Asians, Oceanians, Europeans, Africans, and worlds, and then finishing it off with the ending MMA Super Cup based on the world ranking. Now, this is all for the benefit of the national federations and the amateurs. And on the Brave side, like we said, today we are still, it's our one more year. We go into the event business model where we are going around the world and doing events. We will definitely have a minimum of 12 events, nothing less. But we will always look for having more events, but we will not go beyond less than 20, 12 events every year, because we have to go around the globe, and less than that makes us miss a lot of countries that we have to. But on the league structure, it is going to come in. And how sustainable, a very important question is, I would rather have a hope of a model which could or could not be sustainable than having a model which is not sustainable at all. Today we have a model that is not sustainable, and we have a model that is a failed model, and we have the case study in front of us. 7,000 promotions, 6,999 are failed models, and that is evident. That if I come to you and I speak to, and I say that take me to an investor, and I go to an investor and I tell him that I want you to put your 2 million or 5 million into a sport. Which one? It's called mixed martial art. And they'll be like, okay, is it a good business? Yeah, it is a great business. They'll be like, do you have the case studies of successful businesses? Yes, what? Out of how many? 7,000. He would slap me and kick me out of his office in the next
Yeah.
5 seconds. And he'd be like, is this guy an idiot to come and ask me for investment? So that's the situation today. But what we are introducing in the future is a business model. The same guy goes the second time now and says, could you invest your 5 million into a sport called mixed martial art? He's like, do you have a business model? We're like, yeah, it's called a league format. They'll be like, okay, has it been tried before? No, maybe not in MMA, but in other sports, it's a tested and worked model. Okay, but why would I invest that same model into MMA? How can I be safe? Because you have a regulatory authority that is governing the sport. That is key. And once you have that, every other pitch, whether it's the network, business relations, everything else is going to be different. But would you want private sectors to come on board? Today, we don't have the international private sectors in all countries investing in MMA. You go and speak to a businessman about MMA, he will have no idea what we're talking about. Even till today, the biggest bankers don't know that they could invest in MMA. Because you cannot. To be honest, it's not their fault. MMA is a bad investment today. So the only investment we can
Absolutely.
really think about is to create a format that is investment friendly. But why do we believe that that format will be successful in MMA? Because it was the same format was successful in sports that never grew as fast as MMA, that never globalized as fast as MMA, that never had a valuation growth as fast as MMA. So if I'm taking the same model that was successful in those sports, what if I bring that business model to the sports that is the fastest growing, most global, and most valuation growth, and the most fan base growth? What will be the result? The most lucrative sports investment opportunity ever. That's going to be the result. So yes, that is going to be the way forward. Will it be sustainable? 2022, we call it the year of change. So we are introducing that change, which is why we are going out there and being loud and talking to people. 2023 is called the year of truth for us, which is that's the year we will know the truth when it's implemented. We will find out. But I promise you, I don't see, I've been in the investment side of the sports. I really understand that it's better to have something than not having anything. Today, we don't have anything. And that's been the challenge. So every conversation we are having day in, day out, this fighter doesn't want to sign a new contract. That fighter is getting shelved. This fighters are not getting paid. Whatever these problems are happening, all of this is not the fighter's fault, not the promoter's fault. It is the industry's fault or the format's fault. And the people who are right now running promotions are taking advantage of it and living with it, and rightfully so. Promotions like UFC, give them all the respect. Let them go ahead and do what they have to do and cash in as much as they want, because they deserve it. They built this sport. They worked hard. They've invested. They've lost a lot of money, and they've carried this brand to a global brand that it is today, and a sport that we all love today. And they deserve to cash in. But I'm not going to sit down and feel sympathy towards that and say, I'm going to hold on for the growth of the sport a little bit more, because let them eat a little more grass. I'm not going to wait for that. I'm going to go ahead and continue the development. And that's what it is, because the sports has to grow. The future of athletes are coming back to back. And if you look at MAF, you see every time the talent. Today we have Mohammed that just went from amateur to pro with us and fighting in UFC London today, the biggest star that's going to be representing UK now in the future, 100%. If you look at the next big things in Brave itself, Murtaza Talha from middleweight, I don't think any human will be able to beat this kid. No, I don't think a promoter should be saying that, giving that much confidence to a fighter. But this kid looks like nobody's going to beat him. It's unbelievable how good he is.
Very well rounded.
Very well
rounded.
Hammer for a fist, unbelievable wrestling, goes to sambo competitions, kills people, goes to MMA competitions, destroys everybody. So that's from an amateur circuit. If you look at Gamzat Magomedov, who beat Muhammad Machayev when he was 10-0, and everybody thought he's the next big thing, which I still think he is a big thing, but he fought against Gamzat Magomedov, who is something else, unbelievable animal. So I think these are the talents that came from amateur level. And if we're going to wait for the sports to catch up, waiting for the people to eat their grass and wait till their stomach is full, we can't wait for that. These talents are going to get wasted. These talents require it. And imagine how many of the Gamzats and Murtazas and Shimayevs and Johnny Walkers are we losing in Philippines today, day after day, for not working. And that's what's going to happen. We need to bring that national project into Philippines, like we have to bring it to every other country, connect them with each other under an international regulation body. And that's the sandwich format that we need to build from top to bottom, bring them together, unite them under the brand. And to make this event happen, you need really a group of brave people, and that's why Brave Combat Federation, we named it Brave, because you have to be a little bit brave to be able to go out there and make this vision happen against all odds.
JC.
It's really just everything is very, very interesting. I mean, the format, the vision that you have, with even the support you have in the lowest level, in the grassroots. That's something that the three of us have always been pushing, to the development of grassroots programs. And now something like what the IMMAF pushes together with Brave to grow the grassroots programs of all possible countries that are within the federation, within the organization. Leaning towards all of these, I guess from this would be a question from the fighters as well, when they join into EMAF events, and in the future, most likely they will look into going professional. Is Brave Combat Federation also looking for talents deeply in from EMAF member federations?
100%.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's like, how do you guys scout for talent? So it's not, so you're scouting talent for EMAF and then you're scouting talent for Brave. How do you guys go about it?
Scouting is like mining for gold, right? You have to really put your hand in the dirt, dig in, search for it, feel every single stone and scratch them and feel it. So that's what you got to do for scouting. That's why we believe that we have the largest scouting program in the world, because we use our co-promoters, our national federations. We create individuals in each of these countries as well to start working on making a strong scouting program that is looking at athletes, watching every single event that's going on in the region or the country. It's not an easy process, but it's a huge, massive team year by year that's being built in terms of scouting this athlete. That's why we don't believe in a matchmaker. We don't have a matchmaker in our promotion. We only have an athlete relation team. The only time I've heard of matchmakers are when they're having arranged marriages. I haven't heard of matchmaking in sports really, So I don't know where did this come from. For some reason, we have that in our sports. So that's why I love the IMF competitions, because you can't go to an IMF competition to the World Championship and say, tomorrow's fight I'm not fighting because that guy's a wrestler. Could you give me a striker, please? What are you having buffet here? This is a competition. You're competing to fight against the best of the best fights against the best. That's the sport always about. And competitions are always about that. You might even have a guy without experience competing against the best because he signed up to compete in this competition. I'm sorry. You have to be against the best. So for Brave, we don't need matchmaking, because when we have scouting team that has scouted the best athletes, I can have guys like Gamzat Shimaev fight in his third fight against a guy who's 5-0 or 6-0 or 10-0. Doesn't matter. You don't want to fight? Get out. You won't be here. Come back when you're 5-0 and ready to fight guys at the top level. Everybody that's been in Brave is ready to go and fight against the best. And that's coming back to the media world as well. Because of our being in the bubble, we feel like, the guys in UFC or somewhere else, that must be the best fighter. Really? Why? Because he hasn't fought around the world? Like, it's stupid. I mean, just even think about it. Like, what has he done to deserve that he's the best fighter? There is fighters who's traveling around the world, fighting in other countries, traveling and competing in other places, while you are stuck in your continent and fighting against each other. And then few guys come to your countries and compete with you, and you feel like you're the best fighter. Don't misunderstand me, and don't get me wrong that I'm not saying they don't have talent. They're greatest fighter at the highest level, 100%. But that does not mean that we could take a decision that they're the greatest fighters, because when you look around the world, when you look at the Brave guys, how did Gamzat Chimaev go out there and actually start smashing people there, And the reason why is not because of anything. I'm just saying that he's equally great as much as the guy there is good. And the reason why we could identify that is because we really look at A to Z about where these guys come from and what their nature of fighting in Brave is. So for me today, I think nobody in the next 5 years, again, it's a fight business. Anything could happen, but I have a strong faith in this kid called Murtaza, that this guy is something else. And it's not me being a promoter, because if I was a promoter, I would put him against easier fights. But this is Brave. In Brave, we don't need to be a promoter. We just make the best fight against best. And if you have followed Brave, you will see that it's just a mess of. Sometimes a lot of people, our PR and media team hates us because they're like, you just have two great fighters and you make them fight against each other. One is going to lose. And I'm like, yeah, that's Brave all about. The best will fight against the best.
That's the
No
thing.
excuses. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. The fights like Ikram versus Chimaev was crazy fight. I mean, we could have lost. We were supposed to lose one of them in that, and both were the future champs. I think that fight, if you make Ikram fight Gamzat again 5 times, you'll get 5 different results. It could go either ways every time. And that's the kind of fighters we have, and we make them compete against each other. So, but on the other hand, the scouting program is tough. We have co-promoters. We have our own athlete relation team. We have our media team who's supposed to be watching all the fights. We also try to bring in a one-person, 2-man team from those countries to work with it. But of course, once we create the national project, the national federation will be the center of the stage. They have to be involved with making sure that all the fighters that we are scouting or not scouting goes through that ranks. Because in the end of the day, regulation, I've mentioned this many times, but regulation is not only for the name. They have to take the responsibility as well, because what's going to come from that country has to be well regulated. Because once they enter the league format, you're talking about 8, 9, or 10 clubs or teams like Arsenal, Manchester United, Liverpool, and so on. So in the league format, invested by the biggest businessmen and business tycoons, watched by the government, connected to compete with the international leagues. So the regulation has to be very strong, because once they get into that competition, it's the name of the country, it's the name of your country's league. It's also about those athletes fighting at the highest level. So regulation is key, and the National Federation has to take that responsibility to make sure that they also have a great development program, grassroots development program, as well as scouting system for athletes. But we will not take any athletes outside of the federation, because otherwise the whole system breaks down. It has to be one strong, big system under one federation, and everybody else who cannot get inside that system and be a part of it, you will be Nokia.
And speaking of the matchmaking, our friend Chris Hoffman. Chris Hoffman is an MMA fighter based in Switzerland, by the way, Mohammed. So they're all
Oh,
tuning in. Shout out to you guys. 360 Martial Arts in Switzerland. Hoffman is the double champ here in the Philippines.
amazing,
So
amazing.
now he's in Switzerland. He's training there. He's with his family, and he's not shelving his MMA career. And then another one. This is one of the OGs of the Philippine martial arts. Our Tito Alain Lim. Now he's asking the age limit for joining.
For the
So-
MMA Super Cup or Brave?
Yeah, for the MMA Super Cup, I
Probably
guess.
for both.
Yeah, MMA Super Cup. It's a seniors. So as per the IMMAF regulation, the senior age limit is 18. Upper limit. There's no upper limit, but it's from 18-year-old onwards.
Carl.
I love what the Hawk said about it's an ecosystem, and that's how the industry grows, and it's a systemic problem. Like, this isn't the fight. Sometimes fighters just get a lot of flack for taking on the world on their shoulders, like, oh, I lost and I didn't train hard enough and stuff. But guy, even if you lose, you should be able to cash in on your own reputation and your hard work. On the fan side, Mohammed, how do hardcore fans like us and others who see this format and say, well, it's about time we had an MMA World Cup, how can we help and how do we support this kind of initiative?
Of course, I mean, we will. The best thing is let's go out there and send the message to the people. Talk about. I mean, the most important thing is this is going to be a tough education to the MMA fans, right? Because this is the time you're going to be talking about. You're going to be talking about MMA like you're talking football, and you're like, oh, this team is going to win it because this guy's the weak link of the team. That guy's, and you're like, the conversation is getting very different. We were always used to talking about one fight at a time. Today we have to talk about 9 fighters in one team for that team to win. So there's going to be a lot of team stories to be told. So the narration or how we are used to spreading the media or promoting
Different
a fight,
packaging now, right?
packaging is changed. So today we want to really know Ireland team. We need to call John Kavanagh and find out what's his Ireland team, because now they've collaborated with the Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland are joined hands together for one Irish team, which is amazing
Wow.
news. That's
Peace.
a great.
Peace in
yeah.
Ireland, finally.
Yeah, and they're going to come together as one strong Irish team from both sides. So that's going to be very interesting. And John and Andy Ryan is going to be going, and they're going to have a team that's going to be coming in. So for me, the question for him, like for example, if you're asking John Kavanagh, is your selection of teams, you've already there right now in the Abu Dhabi World Championship. You know the Bahrain fighters, you know the Russian fighters. Who are you going to sign in? Because who's going to be the newcomers that is going to change that team that's already in the worlds? So we know the results, what could happen to 5-6 fighters, because they didn't get the gold medal already. Instead of Bahrain and Russia took the gold and silvers. So who are you going to replace them with that has already not performed in the World Championship? How are you going to change the team? And where are you getting these athletes from? So their scouting program is going to be a message, how they're going to manage the team and replace their team. So the team news will be so important, but it's going to be also interesting because there's going to be a lot of ambassadors coming representing their countries, So we're going to have a lot of celebrity fighters and the government officials going to be coming there, represent their country. We wonder who will come for representing Ireland, and we wonder who will come representing Russia. And, when they come in and there's going to be a Russia-Irish event, that's going to be a very interesting one as well, because now it's not about 2 fighters who are saying we carry the flag. It's actually about 2 countries competing against each other. So things are going to change out. I think the messaging and the packaging, like you mentioned, has to be different. But please jump on board to be able to share this message. Most importantly, give motivation to the athletes that's out there and the National Federation that let's get together, because if we will have a chance to represent our country as well in the next Super Cup, if we work hard and become in the top 6 ranking, or maybe even showcase that we are working as a federation, as a country, some of the biggest talents are being produced here. If we don't have the opportunity, who knows? We might even be signed up for the wild card for the next year, if not in the top 6 ranking. But the opportunity is there. Let's work hard to make it happen. Let's follow how the quality of the MMA Super Cup talent, because they said that it's the best fighters from each country, right? If they say that's the best fighters from each country, we want to see what's the level of the best amateurs in the world. And if that's the highest level of amateurs, believe me, that there's no level of amateurs that can get bigger than that. So watch them. That's the competition that you need to reach if you want to be the best in the world at the amateur level, and if you want the best promotions in the world to sign you or be in the league in the future. But those are the guys to watch. So watch them. All the MMA fighters watch. MMA fans enjoy it, because that's going to be the first team versus team, and you're going to see some kind of things that's going to happen there. That's going to be very different. The coaches will be under pressure. The fighters and the team will be under pressure. The senior fighters will have to stand up and motivate the younger fighters and take up the leadership role. So, and in the end of the day, it's country versus country, you know. So you will have people who know MMA or doesn't know MMA will love to watch that events to see which is going to be really the best country in terms of amateur MMA fighters and the future talents of mixed martial art. We will find it out on March 8th to 13th.
And speaking of fighters, let's switch back to Brave for just a bit.
Yeah.
two fighters or two fights. Hey, we had Fakhreddin here previously. Then he fought. Your thoughts on that? Are you good with the rematch? And then, of course, our kababayan, our fellow countrymen, your thoughts on his fight, Rolando D's recent fight in Serbia. So let's go with Mohammed Fakhreddin's fight first, because he was defeated, and then here comes the aspect of social clamor, and then you guys reviewed it, and then you decided
that was a great fight though, Coach.
And that was a great fight, actually. Then how do you view this, or what are your thoughts on how Brave was able to go about this, and then came to that decision that you guys go do it again?
Yeah, I mean it's for me, I just want to find who's the winner, you know, because this has been going around for a long time. First of all, these two guys really hate each other. They don't like each other at all.
They've been talking shit.
There is no friendship between these guys. And I've been trying to tell them, guys, listen, here is the thing, right? Think about the historic factor for the legacy behind this event, because Mohammed Fakhreddin will be the first and the biggest Arab. He's already the biggest Arab MMA fighter, the most loved, I would say, the most loved Arab MMA fighter. There is no history for Arabic MMA or legacy for mixed martial art in Middle East without using the word Mohammed Fakhreddin. His name is always going to be there. The biggest fights, the most exciting fights, he's always been there in the story. So Mohammed Fakhreddin is loved by everybody. He's like Ronaldinho of MMA in Arabic world. You know, nobody hates him. Everybody loves this guy. You know, and then he has the opportunity to create the biggest history, becoming the first two-division champion in Arab mixed martial art history at a global stage. I mean, that is going to be an actual gold star in the Arabic MMA's, Arabic MMA's history, his legacy, let's say. And that's the opportunity he has. On the other hand, Mohammed Maalim is a guy, I don't know, he just got a huge army of soldiers from Algeria behind him that follows him religiously. And he...
Diehards, man.
Diehards.
That dude is like a cult leader, man.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I was like, should I go and tell him that? I will tell you that story in a bit. And then that army behind him, and then he's going to make his history for his country. So there's a big legacy, because he's going to make history becoming the first middleweight champion for Algerian MMA, while this guy is going to be the first double champion in Arab history. And both are guys with huge fan following. And that's a huge, this is about Arab MMA legacy. And what happened to you guys? You guys just turned up, forgetting the legacy, keeping the legacy and the history and everything behind, and went on a social media war with each other, you know? And I was like, okay, I don't think the bigger picture that I was looking at is not really working out here. So this fight has a historic factor. This fight has a bad blood factor. And at the same time, we made that fight finally happen, got canceled. And the bad blood just increased because of why Maalim coming out and saying what he said, and Fakhreddin felt disrespected for not respecting his medical conditions, and then the bad blood just increased twice as much as it could be. We had to make that fight as soon as possible before it gets more nastier on social media. So we made that fight happen, and I was like, that's it, this is going to be closing this chapter. And Maalim won, and the federation just comes back, reviewing it and saying it's a no contest.
And then sorry, from what I want is your personal insight on this, like being the promoter. Is it like you're basically balancing out two sides, and then you're trying to pacify everyone?
3 times the drama, right?
Yeah, you're practically balancing out the drama. Like, how is it for you?
Oh, it's mental. I mean, that's why for me, I was like, you know what, guys, we're gonna make this fight happen again. I don't expect anything. I'm not gonna expect anything. I'm not gonna expect this fight to happen. I'm not gonna expect this fight to make a decision. Something might go wrong again. There's a high chance. So throw away all your expectations. Make the fight happen. It's gonna be a rematch. Somebody has to win this fight. Somebody has to really be the champion and take this home before they end up meeting somewhere on the street outside. So before this happens,
Outside the venue.
Yeah, I don't
Exactly,
think
exactly.
anybody has a lack of motivation to take out the other guy on the street.
yeah, and they both have a huge fan following, so
Exactly.
it might get crazier. It might get national to national. It might get fan base to fan base. So this is getting really serious. So because they have the huge fan following. So and on the other hand, we need a middleweight champion. We are supposed to crown one, and these guys need to come to a conclusion on who's going to be the champion. But here it is. When yeah, you're right. When the fight happened, Fakhruddin lost. You can imagine the wave of social media comments and the fan base bombarding us with,
Backlash.
how much they're angry with the decision. And we're like, listen. And most of the guys are like, you guys are wrong. And I'm like, listen, Brave doesn't make decisions. We don't have referees and judges.
The platform, yeah.
This is a national regulatory authority. Go catch them. Like, leave us alone, And they don't. I mean, most of the guys don't know, right? They just want Fakhruddin, that's the thing. So they come in, they're like, why are you employing this guy? I said, he's not our employee. The referee is not my employee. The judges are not my employee, and it's unbelievable, So this is where the mentality. So we had bombarded, and then we said, you know what? You have to give, the federation has to come with a review. The federation comes up, and I was like, what's going to happen? The federation comes up and says, official review, no contest. And then few seconds of calmness, and then starts Algeria.
Yeah.
So much hate again.
How did you make this decision? I didn't make this decision.
That was a huge social media circus. It was.
Yeah.
I mean, for us who's following international MMA and different promotions, that was huge. And this is no BS. It's like both fans from both sides, they were getting into it. They're really.
But I love it, man. Imagine if this happened in the World Cup. Now it's team dynamics as well on the draw.
Country versus country. So now Mohammed's phone's gonna blast all the times, like people from so and so country,
It'll
and
be
then
our
from so and so country.
Oh, yeah.
So-
It's going to be exciting. So that's why Brave International Combat Week, the return of the Brave International Combat Week, the MMA Super Cup for 3 to 4 days. That week is going to be exciting. Brave event. We're going to have Fakhruddin versus Maalim. Unbelievable. We're also going to have the main event between Hamza and Brad Katona. That's going to be another great, crazy fight. So it's going to be an exciting week. And Brave International Combat Week couldn't have returned in a better way, So you guys have to be there too, Definitely. I would love you guys to be there.
We would love to be there.
It'll be exciting.
And then from there, this is the first. I don't want to say controversial, but because it's beyond controversial, everyone got into it. And then the next issue comes from Rolando D's fight.
Yeah.
I mean, we did a breakdown of that fight. I did a personal breakdown of that fight. We went play by play. And so that we can all be clear here, that was a really close fight. Even I said on record, that was a really close fight.
Yeah.
It could have gone either way. This clearly shows the level of understanding for fighters, for coaches, and for judges. So we're now seeing the different spectrums or the different perspectives of MMA. Even JC had his share. Karl said his piece, and we both, I think we all agreed that it was a really, really close fight. But for me personally, it was in no way. In no way was it a unanimous decision. I would have accepted a split decision.
Sure.
And then it came out unanimous decision. And for you as a promoter, these are the things that you don't have control of, but you have to bear the grunt.
Yeah.
So how, look at Mohammed's face. I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
So how were you able to? How do you deal with these things? And how were you able to? Because for us, I said Rolando D's my friend. We're not teammates, but the MMA community here in the country is very small and it's very close knit, and I do understand his frustrations. Hence,
Sure.
I said that this is That's why when he went off on social media, I told everyone this is coming from a guy who went through so much adversity, and he felt he didn't get his fair shake. So everything that you're seeing right now is just out of frustration. And I'm
Sure.
pretty sure that Brave will understand his like Brave will totally understand. I mean, at least the way I understand and see Brave as an organization, they will definitely understand whatever the hell he is gonna say, because
Yeah.
it's already hard as it is to train. It's already hard as it is to travel, but everyone's trying to make it work.
Exactly.
Rolando made it work. You guys over at Brave made it work. So how was your Rolando D fight experience?
I mean, see, Rolando has always been a good kid for us. You know, I mean, he's we've respected him. He's respected us. We've had great relationship. I mean, if you look at Rolando D, he's one of those guys who had the privilege to fight, I think, 3 times in the pandemic year, you know.
Mm.
So, I mean, that's not possible for Southeast Asian athletes, African athletes, South American athletes. It's been the toughest time for these guys, you know. I don't think African athletes or Brazilian athletes were able to, many of them were able to fight in this pandemic year.
Yeah.
But, you know, and even the fight which Rolando was fighting in Serbia, it was almost going to not happen, you know, and we had to call in special favors to some of our government friends to make this happen.
Yeah, I mean,
Luckily,
I'm sorry to break you off, Mohammed. This is the part wherein the Titos of fighting came into. We kind of got a little bit of heat because we kind of defended Brave stance. We said, "Do you know how hard it is to mount an event right now? You guys," and then we had to explain
Just the
to
cost.
people. Yeah, and we had to. Carl was able to explain, and JC was able to explain to people that it was I think you have a better explanation later. Like Rolando had to go through visa issues.
oh yeah,
He had to go through travel issues. There were so many challenges,
yeah.
and he wouldn't be able to land in Serbia if not for Brave. So please, I mean, in your own words, how was Brave able to bridge the gap in terms of getting Rolando from the Philippines, fixing his visa, and taking him to Serbia?
I've had a call with Rolando already before the fight, before we even announced the fight with him or gave him the contract to sign for it. I had a chat with him, and Rolando could tell you this if you ever speak with him. He will tell you that I had a call with him while I was in Monaco. I still remember this. I told him I'm having this call to give you an explanation that I shouldn't be giving to a fighter, or a fighter would never want to hear from a promoter. But let me tell you about what we have done as Brave Combat Federation during the pandemic year. No promotion. Every promotion, the so-called top promotions, everybody closed their windows and sat home, including UFC. If they didn't have Abu Dhabi, they would have also closed their windows and sat home in that warm wood fire that they have in their houses. You know, that's what's going to happen. But Brave got out, created one of the strongest COVID policy, because we have, if you look at the history of Bahrain, we were the ones, as per the director of WHO, became a case study for how COVID should be handled by a country. So we had a great teacher in our country's national task for COVID, and we took that study, we collaborated that study with FIFA's regulation system and other federations' regulation system, and we combined them, and we copied from everywhere and created one strong new system for COVID that we could implement. So we implemented in Bahrain, and when we had situations in each country that wouldn't allow us, we traveled to the country that would allow us, so we could continuously keep doing events. Forget about the revenue, forget about the ticket sales. It doesn't exist at those times. Sponsorship doesn't exist because it's COVID and people are losing money. So we just had to go around and make events happen to make sure the fighters could keep fighting, and that's what we did. And we continue to do that. That's why we really thought Bahrain to be the combat kingdom. And it was nothing to emulate anything else or to try to make it look like Fight Island. When people are like, "Oh, you're going to be like Fight Island," I said, "Sure, but why call it the combat kingdom? Because of what they actually did without the support of another country, my friend. You know, so there's a difference here what we're talking about." And we traveled around the world. So I called Rolando and I told him, understand that what we are doing, let's respect what is going on here, is what Brave is doing to allow fighters to get opportunity. We went to Europe so European fighters can fight. We went to Bahrain so Arab fighters can fight. So we are traveling so those fighters can continue fighting because their travels are not helping them out. So travel bans are going to be biggest challenge. So then when we gave to Rolando the fight, this is when I spoke to him before when he had a challenge that I need to fight, you know. And as a fighter, we understand that every fighter wants to fight all the time. So I gave him the call and I made him understand that what's the situation going on right now. And when he got the fight, I was like, okay, now he'll understand what I spoke to him before about how much difficult it is to travel. And yes, it was a difficult challenge too, because one of the things of the flights, second thing is we are looking at the flights and their challenges. We're looking at the national challenge as per Serbia, because they have countries that they don't want people to enter from. We need to get them exemption. We need to make sure that they get exemption. And if we want to give them exemption as well, there's a completely different process that we need to go to apart from the sports strategy, because we're talking about 2021, and it was not the best time for having people travel from Southeast Asia at that time. And so we couldn't do anything other than get him the visa. In the end of the day, we'll find a way to get him there. We'll find a solution to travel him through different other roads. But they don't have an embassy in Philippines, so that's going to be another challenge. So we're like, what are we going to do then? So we said, you know what, let's go to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, let's have a chat with them. And we called Serbian government officers, and thanks to the government, from the president to the prime minister of Serbia, they have really helped us make this event happen. Without their support, I don't think we would have been able to pull out, because we've really asked as much as we could from the president of the country and the prime minister of the country and their families as well, and their offices. They've supported us heavily. So they called the embassy, they made sure that they keep that ready, and to the nearest country where we can have a transit for him. And finally, we found the flight. We found the embassy in Indonesia and told him, go fly there and get the visa. And Indonesia just banned anybody to come there without 10 days quarantine in Indonesia.
Wow. What an amazing logistical feat.
Yeah. And we were like, can I go back to the president and prime minister's office one more time? Once more, please, guys. And believe me, that's why I really respect it, because they didn't really make it feel like I was annoying them, which I knew we were, but they still called us, they still worked with us, because we have a very good international country-to-country relationship. If we didn't have our bilateral relationships, and that's the power of Brave, I say that we are thankful that His Highness is our founder. We have a lot of bilateral relationship that allows us to reach to the government level and introduce government to mixed martial art. And that's why we say MMA is in the good hands today. So they allowed it, they got us back, and they said, you know what, we'll look at the next embassy. So we started calling different embassies in different countries. Most of the countries were on the national, because the embassy cannot make a country decision. They can only do the business, but the country is on lockdown. They can't do anything about it. So finally, we found Dubai. We said, let's do that. We found the embassy in Dubai. We worked it out. But that flight was something, I don't know, what was it, a 36 or 40 hour? I don't know how crazy that flight was for him, how expensive this flight was. But in any case, we had no choice. That was the only solution from all the neighboring countries, and we could find. And finally, he had to go through that road. And finally, he reached. I remember him reaching Serbia, and he walked into the hotel, and I was there, and I said, you know what, I need to meet Rolando. I walked into him and I said, remember my phone call, and I told you what it means to get a guy to fight at this time of the world? This is what it takes, So it's not going to be easy, but in the end of the day, you're a fighter, we are a fighter, the organization is a fighter. We all are there to make things happen, and we all made the things happen. You're ready, we're there to fight. But again, it comes down to fighting in a main event in your opponent's home country, home city, and we all know the history and the most famous saying to never leave in the hands of the judges,
Yeah.
Because when it is at that level, and like you said, yes, unanimous decision, too much. But was it a close fight? Yes. If they would have given a unanimous decision to Rolando D, split decision to either one of them, unanimous decision to that side, I understand it. And I think that it was a close fight myself too. And it could have gone either ways. And I would never complain whichever way it went. Exactly right. Unanimous decision to Slobodan. It's too much. But it is his home country. And again, like we always say, there's nothing we can do as an organization, because you're talking about the system of judging. I'm not a fan of the MMA system of judging regardless, because I still couldn't understand it till today. What are you guys 10 and 9ing? You're 10 9ing a lot of times. What are you 10 and 9ing? Okay, you can write down cage control, aggressive, but what are you really doing there? So it's still a mystery to me. I've had so many coaching courses here. I've been a fighter. I have all of my friends, referees and judges. I've changed so many referees and head referees and chief judges in the past 57 events that I've done. I've seen it and all, but I still can't understand how you're doing the 10-9. So I think there's a change that is really required, and be specific about what you're doing and hold these guys responsible for what they're doing. And then
accountability. Yes, sir.
Yes,
You said it.
Hold them responsible.
True. And one more thing, and the worst, craziest thing is what we've done as much as we could as an organization is how do you appeal, and the guys who made the decision wrong or right or wrong, we don't know, but we feel like it's wrong, and we appeal it to the same guys for them to come
Who
back
made
and
the
say,
decision? Yeah.
sorry, I made a
That's
mistake.
Yeah,
It's not going to happen. And
really
I'm not talking
hurt.
about
Yeah.
MMA.
no.
I'm not talking about MMA. You're talking about football. You see the problems with the referees. Even today, we have the war, and the main referee makes a decision, and the war, the guys watching the TV is scared to change the main referee's decision. Imagine we're talking about one of the most regulated sports in the world. Imagine
Still it
MMA.
happens.
So this is going to
Yeah.
happen. So you
That's
can't
true.
change it. And how am I going to tell? If I tell you, why did you give 10-9? You could give me 200 reasons why do you see 10-9. And that's not a problem. So we can't do anything about the judge's decision. But I was surprised in Russia, and which so many people used to say that, oh, Russia is different. They always give an advantage to the local guy. And we had our Russia event, and we have Ibrahim Mane had a fight, and it was a strange fight where they gave the win to the other guy, his opponent, where we all felt like Ibrahim Mane purely deserved the win. We came back, and the same regulation called us back and said that we overturned the decision. So that is, once in a blue moon, you get surprised by, it's not all bad. You always see some good, some sunlight and at the end of the
There's
tunnel.
a silver lining, apparently.
Exactly. You always see that. But also, so what we did as an organization is we said, you know what, if there's an appeal, we can't give it back to them. We can't give it back to the organization. We would give it back. So we kept 3 different areas. One is Get Brave, collaborating with an independent authority outside of this national federation that we work with. So an independent authority will stay as an organization that exists today that will do the evaluation. Now, again, that is only the second side, because even then, I wonder these people will have any kind of personal issues with these referees. They always want to show that they're better, or maybe they're, I don't understand that. So to regulate it even more, what we will do is we will have, as our organization, sending it to at least 6 to 7 independent organizations from other countries like India, Pakistan, Belarus, Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, somewhere that they have no idea about, have no relationship with these countries. So we look at 3 areas and get all the 3 results and evaluate it, and then shift all that to the independent body for them to make a decision. But again, it's not a perfect solution, but it is a better solution than giving it to the same guys that, to go and tell them, hey, you made a mistake. Can you overturn it? It
And
doesn't
it's a
make
good
sense.
start. It's
It's a
actually
good
that
start.
one is a good start. Yeah, you can. That's actually a good start. Now, what do you feel like? Do they run it back, or do you have a different path for Rolando's career right now?
Orlando is, for me, he's in the position where I tell him that it's a tough situation for him. He's going to come back. I don't have any doubt that he's not going to fight again. He's going to fight again. And he
He's
wants to
young,
fight
man.
again.
He
Exactly.
has a lot of fight in him.
There's a lot of, that's what I was telling many times, that he has a lot of fights with him. But as a fighter, we've all gone through it. Every loss is tough, Losses
Yeah,
are
sure.
tough. You need to pick yourself back up. And especially when you are the senior most in your circle, you always feel like there's nobody else to, tap you on the shoulder and tell you, hey, listen, calm down. I've gone through it, So when you are the one leading the pack, you always have to do everything to yourself. And if you are going to be, your mental strength has to be twice as stronger as everybody else. And that is where Rolando now has to go through, is to be mentally twice as strong and come back stronger. Because if you think about it, his win against John Bruin was one of the biggest wins of his career. And that was not, you were talking about one of the top fighters in Oceania, that's from the lightweight division. I mean, this kid is not any guy. This guy is where I've had so many guys calling Dan Hooker and people like him, so many guys talking to me and saying, John Bruin is going to be the thing in the lightweight division. And Rolando D went there and won that fight. And then he fought against the current title contender, who's going to be fighting for the lightweight title, is Kubanic. He lost against Kubanic, the title contender. Does not mean that he cannot revisit that conversation again. And it's not like he lost against the 5th place or 6th place guy. You lost against a guy who's going to be fighting for the title. And then this happens, So realistically looking, there's nothing in your career that you should feel like I should stop right now. You should just shake it off, get back. Pandemic is getting over. We're all looking for a new year, new life, new vision, new goals. And this year is going to be a new year, and you see everything happening in a positive way. A big event starting in 2022 for Brave as well. So we call it the year of change. Make it the year of change for yourselves as well as fighter. And I think he should come back, and he has an amazing lightweight division waiting there, with Ahmed Amir right there, Sam Patterson, Kubanich, Amin Ayub, Orlando D, John Bruin, Slobodan. It's I
Very
think
stacked division.
it's
Yes.
interesting division. A lot of stories, a lot of fights there. It's fun. Get in there and go catch the next one. And go out there and get that fight. Everybody is going to go. It's Brave. You
Yeah.
might have. And if you look at the lightweight division, I mean, I will speak to Rolando through this call of ours and think about it. The lightweight division, if you think about it, lightweight division is known as a cursed division in Brave. No champion has been able to hold his title or defend his title in the lightweight division. It is a cursed title. You become the champion, you don't defend it. That's been the story. We're waiting for somebody to change that story. And let's see. So that's that. We, for the fun side or the promoting side, we call it cursed, but realistically it is that way because that shows how tough the division is. Everybody beats another guy. You beat the champion and you become the champion, and the guy the champion beat previously comes and beats the current champion. That shows how tough the division is. So for you to lose against the champion and go through a decision in Serbia and lose in his home country through decision, come on, get back. This is the lightweight division. It is one of the toughest divisions we have. We have the crazy bantamweight division, crazy flyweight division, crazy lightweight division now. It's fun. So this is where the best fight against the best, and you're in that mix in the top 5 fighting against each other. Jump.
And-
It's going to be exciting.
Go, JC.
Just going back a little bit, since you mentioned about the rules, and this whole discussion of ours right now is about controversial or pretty messed up fights that ended not in favor of
Yeah.
those people who've maybe complaining about the results. What do you think should be the changes made in terms of judging in MMA? Because I mean, as far as I know, the judging in MMA, we've based that in modified boxing rules for a very long time, and then a few people have modified it, and now I mean, MMA has been in existence for at least like 30 years, and we're all still confused sometimes on how the judging is done. So what is the EMAF and the partnership with Brave a thing that could change what's confusing with the judging?
First of all, like we said, once we create that global ecosystem under the international federation, like what FIFA exists, they have a group which is supposed to be dedicated to creating the rules of the game. So that committee or that entity needs to exist. A committee that is also outside of FIFA. If you think about it, that's crazy. Because in the end of the day, we will look at FIFA and we'll be like, oh, we want, at some point, as even the head of the regulation of the sport, they do have their politics. They do have their little corruption here and there. They do have a little bit of things going on left and right based on what's best for the sales of the sport, revenue of the sport. It's always going to be there. So the committee that's going to be making the rules of the game is going to be always separate. And they need to consistently be dedicated to making a data of how the rules can change and taking as much advisors on board. And it is a 100-year-old campaign. It will keep changing forever. Today, if you look at football, we're still changing rules today. We're still changing rules from the last year, let's say. It's going to happen. But today, we are also in the world of technology. I mean, you can't sit down and get 3 guys to sit and say 10-9 because I feel so. Look at the technology, arrange more technology like football has done with war. Bring out there. We have data analytics where we show how many punches, how many kicks, how many where the significant damage was, and the strikes and everything else is being very clearly out there. So use that as well. Make sure that people can actually see this scoring system as well and what's going to happen. The referees have to come back and justify it. I think that is very, very important because they can't just rely on 5 years of experience and think that nobody should question us. In football, if you're looking at century-old, decade after decade of experience going in, I understand having a little bit of ego, but you guys are what? You're in a young sport that's only 25, 30 years old sport.
Yeah.
How long have you been training, being
Exactly.
a referee? You don't have more than 6, 7, 8 years of experience, maybe 10 years of experience, but that's it. What are you talking about, So you
And
can't sit down and say that I'm not, you cannot question me, What are you, Colina? I mean, impossible. Come on, you know?
Yes! I have 14 years experience. I passed the grade.
pass the grade.
You are a legend
Fourth-
now.
yeah, 14
No more
years of
mysteries.
I'm no, 14 years of experience in refereeing MMA fights. So I was listening to Mohammed's cutoff. Okay, 7. Okay, I'm
You're there. You're
Okay,
there.
okay. I have more than that.
All good.
I have more than that. Carl.
14 is safe. So I think there is technology can make a big help for us. I'm not. This
Yeah.
doesn't mean that we are insulting referees, but technology is something that we can use. Why don't you use it? I think that's going to make a big difference. But again, to have a committee to make that decision. I mean, we could always speculate. I mean, we could have crazy fun just talking about different ideas of how we would change the refereeing and judging. But in the end of the day, there should be a committee at an interest. That's why I told you, all the challenges and all the problems we have in the MMA world today will all be solved if you have a global ecosystem structure,
Yeah.
because they would create a structure that is needed. So once you have a team, today Arsene Wenger, who's one of the guys, one of the Arsenal's legendary coaches, one of the greatest coaches in the world. Once he finishes coaching, go into the advisory mode and start creating rules of the games. Be part of giving his 2 cents because of the guy's experience of being in the football world for a very long time. And these things matter. Today, if you look at that, where are our experienced guys and where are they going? We need to put all that brains, all that knowledges, centralize them towards one group. So now we have a huge set of experience lost in Brave, huge set of experience lost in UFC, huge set of experience lost in Bellator, huge set of experience lost in PFL. And we're like, where's the sports benefiting here? So that needs to be centralized. Once we create the format, we'll have it. But I think that we need to create a committee that's going to be creating the rules of the game, and we need to develop this system of where it's going and who is going to take responsibility of this. Today, if let's say Franco is having 14 years of experience, but careful, because you are part of your federation. If you make a mistake or if you be careless, then your federation has to take responsibility. If your federation doesn't take responsibility, the international federation will take responsibility and rip you off that position and put you as a sideline referee, And if those things are there, things make, there's a big difference of, you are responsible for what you're doing. Your federation is responsible for what they're doing. Because in the end of the day, a lot of countries, you go for a competition, the federation vouches for the judges to make this guy win. It could also happen where they've seen histories that the regulatory authorities have come down and made sure that they decide who wins. So who takes? There has to be let's say, a system where everybody has to be responsible for it. If the ref is doing, the national federation should take responsibility. If the national federation is playing some, anything that's doesn't seem right, there's an international federation to look after them. So this is where, in the end of the day, I will always repeat, you have to create the global ecosystem. Otherwise, we don't have a sport. Otherwise, what we have is a bunch of events with different names. And you ask an investor to invest in MMA, they would say that I would rather invest in Miss Universe brand rather than investing in MMA brand. Hands down.
Carl.
Absolutely. I love how Mohammed is talking about the system of checks and balances, building institutional knowledge, and of course, making the sport more palatable to investors who would usually not put their money behind something that is not only, let's face it, violent and usually have high barrier to entry just from that marketing perspective, but also because it's prone to corruption. Let's face it. There's a lot of entry points where people are just, there you go. Like, I don't know how you gave it 10-9 when the significant strikes are so and so. But again, the science and the technology, like, how do you justify your 10-9? Here, I can give it to you, and this is how I came up with that score. That would solve, I think, at least half the problems of our sport, and make it something that is, at the very least, not mysterious to the casual viewer, right? So I'd like to just take the time to thank you, sir, because it's about time that we have an MMA World Cup that will hopefully, I guess all of us would like MMA in the Olympics. one
Yes.
day. And wouldn't that be a great day for all of us when we see our sport on the Olympic stage?
True.
Is that a dream that is, you think, Mohammed, attainable in our lifetimes?
Uh, definitely, it is attainable. But like I said, for me, I am one of those people that don't like to leave our sports future in somebody else's hands, and that is why we took the responsibility. We had our sports future in UFCs and the big promotions hands, and thought they
Yeah.
will make a difference for us. And then when we today we are seeing them all enjoying and going IPO and going this, and
Yes.
they're having that time, and we are left behind with the sports development. So
Yes.
we took the weight on our shoulder, and that's why I'm giving out all the business plan in detail to you, because if anybody wants to take this business plan,
Absolutely.
please take it and use it, so I don't have to go through this headache, but
Yeah, because
so it's
we can all benefit from it.
exactly. So we don't hide the business plan. We tell the business plan, if you want to do it. But I promise you, they will not do it, because they will have to lose a lot of money in the name of sports development, and they don't want to lose that money, because it's business for them, not sports for them. So to get to that point about IOC, I think it's like you said, it would be amazing to see MMA in the Olympics. Dream come true. We would have the greatest time, to watch Olympics, and that would be one of the times we'd be in front of our TV and watching, Olympics like
I
crazy, like
think all
never
of us would
before.
shed a tear, right, Muhammad, on that day.
Yes, 100%. So that's going to be unbelievable day. But for me, again, all the best if that happens. Well done. But am I waiting for it? No.
No.
Why? Because IOC is IOC. We know the amount of requirement for sports to get there. There is politics, there's lobbying, there is pleasing people, there is system within the system. So I don't know how it's not an easy road. It is a very tough road, and it's not just about filling up certain checklists and being there. There is so much more behind the scenes than what we think it is to be in the Olympics. Just not making world championships and following WADA. There is so much more. A lot of people will try to block it. A lot of people will not want it to be there. A lot of people will want it to be there according to their system, which might not be pro MMA. So there's a lot of challenges that goes on with it. Do you want us to work for the next 20 years trying to be in the Olympics, or do you want us to work for the next 20 years trying to be the richest federation in the world? That's the question. So today, if you look at cricket, one of the biggest examples is cricket. If you look at cricket as a federation, cricket is one of the richest federation in the world. Are there Olympic sports?
Yeah.
No. Today,
Yeah.
if you look at cricket, ICC, the amount of money that they're funding each federation today, and I know it because I'm part of the Olympic Committee. Out of our 37 federation, one is cricket, and the amount of money that they have given us to develop sports in our country to the cricket federation, it's unbelievable. If I get 1% of that to my MMA federation, we would have been somewhere else in MMA today. But MMA
Wow.
Federation, International Federation cannot fund the National Federation because International Federation does not have the money. Why? Because the sports is poor. Coming back to the format, let's make the sports rich so that the federation can get rich. And if the federation is rich, they can fund the national federations. This is the first time in combat sports history that an event, IMMAF or International Federation, is actually going to give money to the National Federation. MMA Super Cup is the first ever event where the national federations will be able to make money, and that's not enough. That's the beginning for us to show the reason, importance of why national federations should get funding. If your national federation was getting funding every year and tells you, listen, guys, if you start women MMA and youth MMA and under 14 MMA, and if you start building it, we will give you more funding. If you start creating 20 competitions a year, we will give you another extra $300,000. If you start bringing in international fighters to compete in your events and give them the opportunity as well, we'll give you an extra $50,000. You're not going to do
Wow.
it.
Damn.
You're going to do everything, and then give me 2 years and you will establish all of it.
Yeah.
And if you establish it, I will fund you more, because now I have a market share that I can make money off, sell my t-shirts, make my international events, make registration fee, everything. But why do you ask them to do that without reinvesting into it? This is a sport that it is today. So why do we want to go IOC? Let's talk business. Because once we join IOC, there's a funding from the IOC that comes in, and then we can know that, guess what? Now my federation is sustainable. Now my international federation can have a budget that I don't have to rely on others. But today you're relying on IOC to get that budget. So you can fight, and I don't mind fighting for it. We should keep fighting for it as long as it takes. But I'm not going to rely on that and say that, use that as an excuse and say, we are not where we are because of these guys who are blocking us to be in IOC, or IOC is not recognizing us. That's why our sport is not there. And it's always an excuse for us. We're all talking about IOC as an excuse. Forget about it. Let the MMAF do their job. They're doing an amazing job trying to be in the IOC. They got the water signatory. Let's focus on making this international federation rich. Let's take the model of what cricket has done. IOC, they don't want anybody. They are the richest federation. They are funding everyone. You look at their events happening in the COVID times, the World Cups that's happening in the COVID times, the athletes that are being the richest. They're creating a league, and in 5-6 years' time, they're becoming the top 4 leagues in the world. Leagues that have been there for 100 years, and these guys in 6 years are being the highest paid athletes, highest sponsored events. What's going on? They're not even an Olympic sport. So here we are. Let's learn from that and say, let's not use IOC or Olympics as an excuse. We would love to be there. Go continue working, International Federation. We will be backing you for it. But meanwhile, we don't want that to be our excuse when we fall, that it was because of IOC or it was because of the people that blocked us. We want to work on making our federation rich. So whether IOC is there or not there, our federation, our sports didn't become the fastest growing sport because of IOC. It didn't globalize around the world because of anybody. It didn't become the largest valuation sports in the world because of anybody. Didn't become the most famous athletes in the world because of anyone. We did it by ourselves. Now, if we change the format, we can even be the richest federation, richest sport in the world. Let's bring that money in. Let's change the format and make it happen. I promise you, every alphabet organizations in the world will follow MMA the moment they see that amount of richness in the sport. Everybody wants a piece of it.
And that is amazing, Mohammed. Make yourself.
That's why it's always a pleasure to talk to the Hawk.
Yeah.
Pleasure is mine.
Mohammed Shahid, thank you so much for your time. You're a very busy man, and you just gave us a very good conversation. We learned a lot. Our eyes were opened. People are going to look back into this episode, and they will review, they will recount all these points, and hopefully this will be added motivation for everyone to continue training, grow their student base, and at least they see a path towards progression.
Yes,
and
an
for you
outlet
guys over at
coach,
and you guys over at Brave are doing an amazing job. Thank you so much for the time, Mohammed. Thank you
It's
so
great
much.
to know from you that we have a lot of things to look forward to, especially in global
And there are
MMA
other
because
ways
of
up the mountain rather than just the one we've been trying to get up to.
Definitely.
Because I am waiting for the drama of that team sports aspect. Because that'll be all the difference, and the playoff and the play-on season.
And
100%.
Brave just gave you a country versus country. It's not a team versus team.
Right?
It's
That's
a country
it.
versus
That's what we've been waiting for.
100%. That's going to be amazing. No, and thank you for having me. The sport is built by fans, and it's time for us, fans and media and everybody involved in the sports, to take it to the next level. Not stop here, rest, and look at these promotions and think that's the end of the world. No, there's a bigger world out there. We need to join together and fight for the bigger cause, the bigger world that's out there. And if that is us sacrificing as a promotion and you guys sacrificing as a media platform, but we all need to make that sacrifice to work for that bigger goal, which is our sport, mixed martial art, which we love, which we are romantic to, making that sport one of the best sports in the world, and it has the potential. We've seen that in 30 years. Let's change the format and make it better in the next 30 years to come. But the next 30 years of work will not be maybe for us. Our children will enjoy it. Our grandchildren will benefit from it. But let that be for them. Till now, we worked for us. We enjoyed it. We are still enjoying the sport. But the next 30 years, what we're going to be working in the new format, let that be for our next generation of MMA fans that's going to be coming in.
Mohammed, where
Appreciate
can
your
people
time, sir.
find you? Where can people, the social media, the website, where can people find you? Where can people find Brave?
And
Brave,
how can
we have
we
also-
watch the events?
Yes, Brave TV. Everybody can go up to Brave CF TV. That's where you can watch all the events. You have your broadcast lists in different countries, but if your country is not on the broadcast list, you always can watch it at Brave CF TV for free. So go out there and watch the events. We hopefully will have the MMA Super Cup on Brave CF TV as well. So you can come and watch that on Brave CF TV and see that team versus team competition. You can follow Brave at Brave MMAF. On Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of the places. And you can follow me on the Hawk Shahid at Instagram. I hope that's the correct one. I'm just taking everything out of my head and just saying, So I hope that's the correct one. But that could be the one. The Hawk Shahid could be my Instagram handle. And if that is, guys, you'll see me there. Follow me. I love to always have a chat. That's why we could, like I mentioned to you in the beginning, I could go for hours and forget all my work when just talking about MMA and educating about MMA, because
Your passion does come through, sir.
Yes,
Always.
I live this, eat this, sleep this. This is my family, this is my kids, this is my everything. I have nothing other than mixed martial art and sports, and this is what we want to fight for, and that's the cause that makes us wake up every day in the morning. So thank you for your time, and thank you for keeping it for a long time and
Appreciate it,
2 hours. I hope we could give us.
Oh no, we thoroughly
We
enjoyed
learned
it. I
a lot.
hope it was
Yeah.
worth your time, man.
It's a pleasure for us. It's like a seminar.
No, it's amazing. I wish to do this more often. We need to, as much as education we can give. This is what we've been doing for the past 10 years, So, but for the new fans, one time when you hear it, it's too much to absorb. But the consistent preaching that we do and tell them and make them understand and make them visualize themselves the difference of what's happening around them in the MMA industry. Because, like I said, we're in the bubble. But when you go outside into the sports world and look at MMA, you will see the disaster that's happening in the MMA industry and the beauty that's happening in the sports world. We want to make sure that all our fans and friends leave that bubble and look at it from the sports perspective, understand that we don't want this event business anymore. We want the sports business. And instead of dealing with these small little complaints about salaries, fighters pay, this, that, everything will be solved when we are in the sports business, because that's the structure that we need to bring into MMA. So thank you for letting me share it, and love the chat. We hope to do it again more often, and see you guys in the
My
highlight
pleasure.
as well.
Thank you.
Oh
Thank
yeah,
you so
for
much.
sure, for sure. Okay, everyone. Mohammed, please stay for a bit. We'll just end the show. Everyone, please follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and on TikTok. Please like this video, subscribe to our channels. I'm on Facebook and YouTube, Coach Franco's Corner. Carl and JC are Destroy MNL. Please follow them on their personal social media handles as well. And with that, we'll see you next week on another edition of Combat Sports Weekly. Bye bye.